I have a sweet at the end of the world. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 326 Proxy War. Thank you. You're welcome. Looking at Zhang Yaping, who seemed to be a dozen years older, Jiang Chen smiled comfortingly and said softly. Zhang Yaping's face was full of bitterness. His lips twitched for a long time and finally squeezed out a word. Failed. Sorry. 500 people, 5 times the military strength. They never thought that they might fail. Even if they had to exchange 2 people for 1 person of the government army, they would not lose. However, they obviously overestimated the fighting determination of the insurgents. Before going to the battlefield, their necks were harder than iron, and they ran away when they fought, wishing their parents had not given them 2 more legs. Few people died in the crossfire, but countless people died on the way to escape. In terms of equipment, the anti-government army's equipment was not bad. Although there were no armored vehicles, there were no shortage of anti-armor weapons such as IT-4 rockets. Not to mention light machine guns, grenades, smoke bombs and other things. However, these things were thrown on the way to escape before they were used much, filling the government army's arsenal. Complete defeat, no doubt. The uprising failed, and the Civil Liberties Party could not protect itself under the full suppression of the PANU authorities. Jiang Chen's investment of $5 million was naturally wasted. Zhang Yaping felt deeply guilty for the foreign businessman who lent a hand to him in his difficulties, but he could do nothing about it. Do you know the reason for the failure? Jiang Chen asked softly. With a bitter smile, Zhang Yaping leaned against the wall of the warehouse. Organization? Lack of training? You revolted too hastily? Jiang Chen silently added in his heart. I'm really sorry. Roberts told the secret. Haha, anyway, it's useless to say these now. Have you given up? Jiang Chen asked with a smile. The war ended within 12 hours, and the Edward government has demonstrated the combat power of the PANU military. I believe that no one will dare to resist his rule for at least 10 years. Of course I know this, and I don't need you to tell me. All I want to ask is, have you given up? Looking at Jiang Chen blankly for a long time, Zhang Yaping smiled bitterly and shook his head. How can I give up? But I have to learn to accept this fact. We thought that with 500 people and equipped with advanced American weapons, we should be able to easily behead Edward, but in the end, history has no shields and no ifs. I know, but I'm sorry that your investment has gone down the drain. Jiang Chen smiled. $5 million is just a small sum for me, and I can still afford it. Doing business is like gambling, and the facts prove that I lost the first round. Now all I want to know is whether you are still worth my bet. Zhang Yaping was stunned. You mean I can fund you another $5 million? That's a waste of money. Not to mention that President Edward has now issued a bill to restrict private party formation. Even if the Civil Liberties Party stands up, no one will respond to this banner. Hearing this, Jiang Chen smiled. This is the effect he wanted. A weak and easy to control new regime came to power. In this way, even if they replaced President Edward, their prestige in the hearts of the people would not be very high. Because they did not overthrow the previous regime by themselves, but it was the result of external interference. It was just like a replica of Iraq to the United States, a perfect puppet regime. Zhang Yaping looked at the happy smile on Jiang Chen's face in confusion. He didn't understand what was so funny about it. I remember you went to New Zealand to study, right? Yes. Zhang Yaping nodded. He even considered escaping to New Zealand or Australia if the uprising failed. Have you heard of the word mercenary? The riot is over. The gunfire in Koro City has completely stopped, replaced by the sirens of ambulances. Not only the insurgents were injured, but also innocent ordinary citizens. The riot happened very suddenly, and there was no time to evade. After the uprising failed, those cowardly insurgents rushed into the crowd in a panic, causing many ordinary citizens who did not have time to evade to be injured, or even killed by stray bullets. Tonight is destined not to be peaceful. Outside the presidential palace, Under this White House-like mansion, Edward was facing a lot of cameras, sweating profusely as he explained to the foreign media who were watching the riot. "Mr. President, what is your opinion on this riot? They are just a group of thugs, and my army suppressed them. I say it again, they are all thugs. Other than that, I have no opinion," Edward ordered the British reporter. He couldn't remember how many times he had clarified it. Are these Western media reporters full of paste in their brains? Or are they deaf? Really? But they are citizens of the Panu Republic. Instead of sending out the police, they directly sent out the army to suppress it. Does this violate your country's constitution? I say it again, no. If it does, I will go back and change it now. Is your country's constitution written on toilet paper? I mean the kind used to wipe one's ass, an American reporter said jokingly. The crowd laughed. Edward's face turned pale with anger, but he couldn't do anything to these people. The toughness of the Panu authorities is only aimed at the domestic situation. The US aircraft carrier is parked in Guam, or 1,000 kilometers away, and can launch a military operation to rescue its citizens in a minute. Now the only thing that annoys him is that he clearly ordered the closure of flights from abroad to the country 2 days ago, but these reporters appeared in his country, as if they appeared out of thin air. After dealing with these reporters, Edward, exhausted, returned to the presidential palace and sat down on his office chair. However, before he could calm down for a while, a Chinese man walked in again. Wang Xianfeng, the representative of Linhua Group. It is said that he comes from a relatively powerful family called Wangs in China, and he is also the son of Wang Linhua, the president of Linhua Group. "What's the matter?" Edward said in a relaxed tone, looking at the man standing in front of his desk. "It's about the progress of the project." Speaking fluent English, Wang Xianfeng said straight to the point. "The recent riots in your country have seriously affected the construction period of our Linhua Group. If it's about business, you should talk to Johnny." Edward really didn't want to hear this question anymore. "But I can't see him recently," Wang Xianfeng said helplessly. To be honest, he didn't want to come to this damn place at all. Even if he had to deal with foreigners, he would rather go to places like Europe or the United States. However, the overseas expansion of Linhua Group's business was a unanimous decision of his father and the board of directors. As the future heir of Linhua Group, he must familiarize himself with overseas business as soon as possible. In his father's words, this is a good opportunity to establish prestige in the company. It is undoubtedly much easier to start business in the calm Pacific Island than in Africa with a chaotic political environment. Yes, it was indeed calm here 2 months ago. But now, the riots have almost brought the progress of the project to a standstill. To be honest, compared to the real estate industry, he is more optimistic about the prospects of the IT industry. However, the failure of Linhua Group in acquiring the Futureman technology project and the sudden large overseas order made the board of directors change their minds. Thinking of this, Wang Xianfeng cursed the man named Jiang Chen in his heart. He was just a dog raised by the Wang family, but he became so arrogant after appearing in the Wall Street Journal twice. While thinking this, he selectively ignored the hard power of Futureman technology and attributed all the domestic performance of Futureman technology to his uncle Wang Dehei. It's not surprising that he would think so. After all, the rise of Linhua Group depends on policies. Can't see him? Edward raised his eyebrows in surprise. I went to his villa, but his security blocked me outside. And from the posture, the alert level seems to be a bit high. What is that guy doing? Edward frowned. There should be a limit to fear of death, right? The civil war is over, and he is still hiding in the villa and not coming out to see people. Chapter 327 Landing on Panu. The night was getting darker. Although they had experienced the drastic changes during the day, by this time, most of the Panu people had already fallen asleep. Johnny was still in his villa, curled up in his basement, leaning against the cold wooden chair, drinking his collection one cup after another. There was 1982 Lafite and 1986 Margaux. Half a year ago, these things were things he could not even think of. Marijuana in Los Angeles is very expensive, but compared with these bloods of the upper class, it is still more than a little bit worse. The basement was stuffy, but he was shivering. Not because of the cold, but because of the chill rising from the bottom of his heart. He asked the mercenaries to guard the villa and not let go even a fly. He could read those eyes, and he knew that those guys who took money to do things thought he was crazy. But he didn't care. He had plenty of money. He just wanted to stay alive. To be honest, even he himself didn't know why he was so afraid of the guy far away in Los Angeles, or the guy behind Roberts. Although this villa, the money and the bank card, all these are indeed in his hands, but he does not feel safe at this moment. If you ask why, he always feels that there is a hand controlling everything, including himself, the reckless rich man, including the increasingly inflated dictator president, including those officials who are corrupted by the US dollar, and also including the more than 100 bodies that died outside the villa. He drank red wine crazily. The sour and sweet taste in his throat is like the oil print of banknotes, and the color is like the blood of virgins. There are 4 white bodies lying beside him, but he doesn't have much energy to fiddle with them now. Even fingers can get sore sometimes. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. He cursed fiercely and threw away the wine glass in his hand. Clap, the glass shattered. He stared at the pool of red and burped decadently. Damn it. He said this in Chinese. It was a bit awkward. It was the Chinese he learned from Wang Shi and Feng not long ago. Wang Shi and Feng came to see him just now, and the bodyguard told him. Lin He Group was introduced by Roberts. Wang Shi and Feng was the representative of Lin He Group. He didn't trust him. He was shaking. His intuition told him that someone wanted to kill him. Someone wanted him dead. He didn't want to die. He wanted to continue playing the role of the rich man. He could bully anyone without any scruples. Whether it was the neighbor's wife or daughter, as long as he liked it, Edward would settle it for him for the sake of US dollars. However, Robert's last phone call made him wake up completely. Yes, he was just a small hoodlum in the slums, a good-for-nothing Irish guy. The reason he had all this was because someone needed him to stir up this stagnant water. Leave. Go to Western Australia to retire. Go to hell. How could he agree to that? He hung up Robert's phone and broke the phone card. A hideous look flashed in his eyes, and he stared at the door of the basement. Come on, let me see what the hell you can do to take my life. The next evening, the southern tip of Corot Island, an old freight ship quietly sailed into the deserted harbor. The port was very deserted, and no one could be seen. After all, what happened yesterday? Most of the residents on Corot Island were immersed in fear and sadness. The next day, most people chose to take leave and reduce travel. The ship was stable on the shore. About 50 agile figures walked down from the ship in an orderly manner. This ship came from West Africa and crossed half the world. Standing side by side with Ivan on the high ground next to the port, Jiang Chen squinted and looked down at the soldiers loyal to him landing. These 50 people are the most capable guys. They fought against the guerrillas of the Tuareg tribe during training in Niger. But seriously, do you really not need to bring your equipment? Ivan asked Jiang Chen. No, our arms have been transported to the warehouse by me. Jiang Chen replied concisely. Ivan looked at Jiang Chen in surprise. The arms had been transported to the warehouse, but he didn't even notice it. The boss's magical power once again refreshed his cognition. When do we start the operation? Ivan asked briefly. You can start when you are ready. Hearing this, Ivan raised a slightly cruel smile. Then let's do it now. Jiang Chen smiled and threw the key to warehouse number 3 into Ivan's hand. Well, I'll leave it to you. Jiang Chen turned and left. Watching Jiang Chen's back, Ivan stood at attention and saluted silently. Including the 15 people who arrived earlier, the number of mercenaries of the Future Security Company who have landed on the Panu Islands has reached 65, which is almost half of the combat power of the Future Security Company. There are no armored vehicles or tanks, but Jiang Chen prepared more advanced things for them, mechanical exoskeletons and drones. Before returning to the world, Jiang Chen almost emptied the mechanical exoskeleton stored in the fishbone base, and even moved those that had just come off the production line to the world. Wang Qing was still very surprised about this, wondering what Jiang Chen wanted to do by transporting all these things to the villa. But Jiang Chen naturally would not explain to her. After opening the container in warehouse number 3, Ivan greeted the captains of the teams and distributed each mechanical exoskeleton to the soldiers of their respective teams. At the training base in Niger, Jiang Chen had left 2 sets of mechanical exoskeletons. Everyone present had practiced using this kind of thing, so there were no obstacles when wearing it. Wearing mechanical exoskeletons inlaid with polyethylene bulletproof plates, and holding streamlined Ripper rifles, teams of sci-fi soldiers walked out of the warehouse. The 64 people will be divided into 8 teams to perform combat missions under the command of Ivan. All combat orders will be deployed through the tablet terminal in Ivan's hand and will be instantly fed back to the tactical helmet of each captain. 8 modified vans are the only vehicles used to store ammunition and drone control terminals. In addition to these 8 infantry teams, there are also 50 hummingbird drones participating in the battle. In the world where small-scale AMP weapons do not exist, this palm-sized attack drone has no natural enemy. This is destined to be an asymmetric war, just like the government army crushed the rebels yesterday. From arming to lining up to departure, it took only 10 minutes in total. Standing at the door of the warehouse, Zhang Yaping looked at the dust raised by the 8 vans quietly for a long time without saying a word. When Ivan, Jiang Chen's bodyguard, began to command these mercenaries, he roughly guessed the identities of these mercenaries. Walking to Zhang Yaping's side, Jiang Chen smiled and said, "I'm glad you made the right choice." "Really? Maybe it's the worst choice," Zhang Yaping said in a soliloquy. "It depends on your perspective," Jiang Chen said softly. "Oh, imagine. Until today, you are still a group of underground party members who are struggling to survive under the search of government troops. After today, I will put you on the throne." Jiang Chen exaggeratedly opened his arms and smiled. "But this so-called throne is just your puppet, am I right?" Zhang Yaping smiled bitterly. Seeing that he was so sensible, Jiang Chen smiled happily. Staring at the eyes of the future president with interest, he spoke. "That's right. But if it weren't for me, you wouldn't even be puppets." Chapter 328 Operation Broken Sword. Late at night, Panel Military Camp. Soldier A, don't sleep. The superior said to take strict precautions. "We have to watch out." Soldier B rubbed his eyes and adjusted his hat. "Okay. Get up immediately." Yesterday's fierce battle lasted until the early morning, and until now, they have hardly slept. Lighting a cigarette, Soldier A glanced at the small TV on the corner of the table. The TV is broadcasting President Edward's speech. Soldier B sighed. "War, this damn war. When martial law is over, what are you going to do?" Soldier A, "Take my children to Australia for vacation." Little Jamie has long said that he wants to go, and said he wants to see the Great Barrier Reef. Well, what about you? In the army, President Edward's prestige is still very high. He used part of the private remittances he received to give to the soldiers in the army as subsidies. It is precisely because of this that, although his regime is unpopular among the people, it is supported by the army. Soldier B, "I think I should go take care of my mother. She wrote that she hopes I can come back soon." Soldier A, "I really hope this damn war will end soon." Soldier B, "Shh, I seem to hear something." The sound was very soft, like the buzzing of a cicada's wings. The hummingbird drone, which was equipped with a 2mm caliber machine gun, gently landed at the window of the duty room. The wide-angle camera the size of a fingernail reflected 2 alert but unconscious faces. Tutu, a few short buzzing sounds, accompanied by the sound of shattering glass and a few strings of blood beads. The god of death quietly descended. The army is the cornerstone of the stability of the regime. If you want to overthrow a regime, you only need to destroy its army. The code name of the operation is Broken Sword, which vows to destroy the sword of the tyrant with iron and fire. 3 signal flares cut through the cold night sky, completely igniting the silence. Da-da-da. Bullets shuttled through the military camp, dragging orange arcs of light, lighting up the camp. The mercenaries of Future Security Company launched the attack without any warning. The Panu military was still immersed in yesterday's victory over the insurgents. Although they were inertially on alert, they were still caught off guard. "The base is under attack." Repeat, "The base is under attack." The general in an officer's cap yelled wildly while holding the intercom. He stuck tightly behind the thick concrete pier and ordered the soldiers patrolling in the city to return to defense. An armored vehicle rushed out of the garage, and the machine gun on the top spewed out raging flames, venting firepower towards the darkness outside the camp. "Damn. Who are these people?" They are definitely not the insurgents. A soldier attached to the back of the armored vehicle nervously buckled the nylon rope of his helmet and fired his rifle at the darkness that could not be seen at all. Whoosh! Several bullets flew past his head, and he quickly retracted his head in fear. It's a drone. Damn it. We have to shoot those things down. A government soldier held a light machine gun and fired at several black shadows floating in the air. Damn, they are too small. I can't hit them. Idiot. Use strafing. The dense firepower did have a certain impact on the offensive of the hummingbird drone, forcing the approaching drone attack group to temporarily retreat. But just when they thought they had the upper hand, the ground forces of Future Security Company moved. 3 o'clock direction. Received. The coordinates of the enemy unit have been marked on the tactical helmet of Thud. The muzzle spewed flames, and the man in the field of vision fell down. From aiming to shooting to confirming the kill, it took only 2 seconds in total. The 8-man team covered almost all arms. The observer marked, the squad shooter killed, the rifleman engaged in frontal fire, the support soldier maintained fire suppression, and the medical soldier was not useful for the time being. Even if he was unfortunately hit by a stray bullet, this bullet with backward charge would find it difficult to penetrate the polyethylene armor embedded in the mechanical exoskeleton. Under the penetration of the Ripper rifle, the concrete bunker was as useless as tofu dregs. A volley of bullets would leave a series of dents on the steel door panels of the armored vehicles. The only thing that the government army could do to these mercenaries was the heavy machine guns on the armored vehicles. However, facing the armored vehicles, these mercenaries were obviously much calmer than the mobs. Several poison python rockets flew out and instantly took away 3 armored vehicles. Seeing that the situation was not right, another armored vehicle threw out the vehicle-mounted smoke bomb and quickly reversed and retreated. However, a rocket flew over as if it had eyes and penetrated its armor without any suspense. The flames exploded in the smoke, and the broken armor fragments flew away, scraping several government soldiers hiding nearby. Looking at the 4 flames, the general's eyes were about to burst, and he held the walkie-talkie in his hand tightly, forgetting to speak. Holding a heavy machine gun and firing back, a soldier huddled behind a bunker yelled, "Damn, their firepower is too strong." At this moment, a deafening explosion covered the sound of gunfire. A flash of fire exploded from the rebels' position. Seeing this, the general showed a hint of ecstasy on his face and yelled at the shaky position of his own side, "It's a tank. Our tank. Everyone, hold on. Victory will eventually belong to us." Tanks and helicopters. In order to show off the insignificant military power of the Panu Islands, President Edward transferred all the heavy equipment to patrol the streets. In front of armored forces, any infantry is insignificant. Only 1 round of charge. He stared at the direction of the reinforcement with a ferocious expression. In contrast to the excitement of the general, the mercenaries of Future Security Company seemed very calm in the face of the Panu military's tanks. The he-bomb exploded in the position and did injure several mercenaries, but that was all. The medic quickly dragged the injured soldier away. At the same time, a mercenary crouched in the shadows carrying a poison python rocket launcher, turned on the laser sight, and expertly locked onto the chieftain main battle tank. Before the tank finished loading the second shell, he pulled the trigger. The smoke spread, dragging the orange-yellow flame, and the anti-armor rocket as thick as a forearm was fired and flew towards the front armor of the tank. In front of the thick suspension armor, the flame was as fragile as a matchstick. However, a scene that stunned all the government troops happened. The armor of the chieftain main battle tank, the unrivaled god of war in their minds, was like paper and was blasted open by this inconspicuous rocket. The flames shot up into the sky, reflecting desperate faces. The bird helicopter with a rotary machine gun flew over, but soon fell in a gorgeous posture, and the remaining hope of the government troops fell with it. Dozens of hummingbird drones swarmed up and rushed towards the fragile rotor of the helicopter. This attack method was simple and crude, but extremely effective. The government army, with their hopes completely extinguished and morale at rock bottom, finally raised the white flag, discarded their weapons, and walked out of the bunker. At this point, President Edward's rule came to an end. Chapter 329. Let's go. The night was cold and silent. A rough humanoid armor walked on the deserted street. The moonlight sprinkled on the cold steel, shining the white lettering of T3. His steps were slow, and he looked around as he walked, as if he was taking a walk. The houses were ruined. The closer he got to the castle, the more miserable the scenery became. Bullet holes could be seen everywhere on the walls. Judging from the density of the bullet holes, they should have come from machine gun fire. Traces of explosions could be vaguely seen in the street corners and alleys. Judging from the scale, they should have been the product of rifle grenades. In the ruins, Jiang Chen saw a pair of eyes. Like a frightened little animal, the eyes fled in panic the moment he slightly turned his face. Jiang Chen moved his throat and slowly looked away. The cleaning can be left to me. Aisha's voice came to his ears. No, I think it's better for me to go there myself. Although he couldn't see Aisha's face, Jiang Chen could imagine her gentle gaze. The bullets almost pierced through the wooden wall of the back room of the house not far away. A hand appeared in sight, trembling and leaning out of the window, quietly closing the wooden window. Jiang Chen could feel that this fear was directed at himself. Is it okay? Aisha asked softly. Of course. Whether it is a corpse or something more terrifying than a corpse, I have seen a lot of them. Jiang Chen said casually, moving his eyes away from the dilapidated house. Aisha knew that he was talking about that world. But I feel that you are not feeling well. Why do you think so? Jiang Chen sighed and replied. Getting closer and closer to Johnny's villa, he pulled out the tactical rifle at his waist. Although it felt like killing a chicken with a butcher knife, he still wanted to say goodbye to Johnny in person. As for the reason, he couldn't explain it. Intuition. There was a hint of gentle smile in the cold voice. Intuition? Jiang Chen smiled and did not comment on Aisha's explanation. Click, the crisp sound of bullets being loaded. Aisha. Yeah. Do you think I'm wrong? This place should have been peaceful. All the wars were caused by him. If it wasn't for the impromptu decision that day, if he hadn't ordered Roberts to send Johnny and then supported the opposition to provoke a civil war, the people living here might never experience war in their lives. This is a problem he has only recently begun to realize. Switching between dimensions may only take half a second, but switching between thoughts takes a long time. Sometimes he can't help but wonder if he has unconsciously applied the logic of the end of the world in the present world. It is undoubtedly in the interests to do so, but is it right? In my heart, you are always right. Jiang Chen was stunned. After a moment, a hearty laugh echoed in the steel armor. Thank you. After hanging up the communication, the frenzy was instantly turned on, and a series of dense red dots appeared in the field of vision. All the troubles and the shackles of human nature were thrown behind his mind, and Jiang Chen felt that his brain was clearer than ever before. The clarity called killing. Ding. The armor vibrated slightly. A bullet hit the solid plastic steel, not even leaving a bullet mark. Jiang Chen looked up with a grimace and saw a black guy holding an automatic rifle and aiming at him. He should be a mercenary hired by Johnny. The black guy was shocked to see that his shot was ineffective, but he did not stop his movements and directly loaded the grenade. Looking at the cold steel armor, he instinctively felt fear. The vortex engine behind him spewed flames, and Jiang Chen casually moved to the side to distance himself from the grenade. The muzzle of the machine gun on the roof pointed at him, and Jiang Chen raised his rifle and fired a volley of bullets, turning the machine gun fire point into a sieve. Then Jiang Chen turned the muzzle of the gun again, aimed at the red dot hidden behind the wall, and pulled the trigger. The bullet tore through the fragile wall and shredded the heart hiding behind it. Kicking the iron door of the villa away, Jiang Chen was bathed in the hail of bullets without avoiding it. He strode forward with great strides, firing back with his rifle. The mercenaries employed by Johnny fell one after another. Seeing that they could not hurt this monster at all, the remaining people finally began to feel fear. At this time, an RPG with a tail flame flew towards Jiang Chen. Without dodging, Jiang Chen raised his left hand and slapped it. With a bang, the fire exploded. The shrapnel scraped the plastic steel armor with a tooth-grinding friction sound, but failed to hurt it at all. High explosive warhead? Try again with armor-piercing bullets, you bastards. Jiang Chen grinned, raised his rifle and shot the guy carrying the launcher to the ground. These mercenaries were finally terrified. Facts have proved that when facing an unbeatable enemy, the so-called professional ethics is just bullshit. The remaining red dots began to retreat. They abandoned their employers and began to flee in 3 different directions. Ignoring the deserters who had lost their will to fight, Jiang Chen smashed the wooden door of the villa with the butt of his rifle, and then walked into the house with his rifle. The jumping mine at the door flew up. Jiang Chen, who was in a frenzy, smiled disdainfully, and didn't even bother to hide. He walked straight through the smoke of the explosion, and walked towards the basement. There were 5 red dots there, and his intuition told him that Johnny was there. The frenzy was lifted. He took out the laser knife to melt the door lock and kicked the iron door open. A smell of alcohol hit him, and Jiang Chen frowned slightly. He activated the air filtration system of the power armor and walked down the stairs with his rifle. The lights were on. The dark red room was filled with iron cages, steel pipes, wooden horses, and all kinds of torture instruments. Without looking at the 4 white bodies, Jiang Chen looked directly at the man sitting on the wooden chair. Red wine, you are quite good at enjoying it. Johnny's throat moved as he raised his blue eyelids and looked at Jiang Chen. Are you here to kill me? Yes. Jiang Chen said softly. Where are the mercenaries above? His voice was filled with a pleading unwillingness to face reality. Dead, or escaped. Johnny's eyes widened, and he grabbed the pistol on the table and pointed it at Jiang Chen. His hands were shaking, especially after seeing Jiang Chen's indifference to his reaction. His shaking became more obvious. I beg you, give me a chance. I gave you a chance, but you didn't cherish it. Hearing this, Johnny was stunned at first, and then laughed wildly. Ha 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 ha, if I really listened to Roberts' nonsense and gave up everything to get on the ship, would you let me live to Australia? Bah. Laughing wildly, Johnny waved the pistol in his hand and pointed it at Jiang Chen in steel armor. Just like a baby waving a toothpick in his hand at an adult. No. If I answer this way, it will make you feel better when you die. Jiang Chen said softly. A pleading appeared on Johnny's face, but then it turned into madness. Let's die together. Johnny roared and pulled the trigger. This was not a gun, but a detonator in the shape of a pistol, used to control the 15 kilograms of explosives buried in the basement. Sparks flashed, but nothing happened. The look on his face gradually turned into despair. Why? Even if I explain to you what MPs, I'm afraid you won't understand it for a while. Forget it, let's go. Pointing the gun at his head, Jiang Chen silently pulled the trigger. Chapter 330 New Country. These 3 days were extremely unusual for the people living in the Panu Islands. They originally thought that the government army would be overthrown by the rebels, but the rebels were beaten and fled. Just when they gave up hope on the rebels, the mercenaries they hired beat the government army and made them raise the white flag. Such a dramatic change made many people unable to react. But in any case, the revolution was victorious. After the military camp was occupied, the rebels regained their confidence in victory. Those soldiers who did not die in the civil war reunited under the new national flag, retrieved equipment from the occupied arsenal, and then captured the presidential residence that imitated the White House. President Edward, who was still asleep, was pulled out of bed and pushed and shoved into prison. An insurgent climbed to the roof of the presidential palace, chopped off the yellow sun flag with a woodcutter's axe, and replaced it with a new national flag with 9 stars and 2 palm leaves. The 9 stars symbolize the 9 islands of the Panu Islands, and the palm leaves symbolize victory. At the same time, surrounded by the insurgents, Zhang Yaping, who was elected as the leader of the Civil Liberties Party, entered the presidential palace and read the declaration of the founding of the country in front of a group of sleepy foreign journalists. The old regime was abolished, and the political system of the Panu Islands changed from presidential dictatorship to presidential republic. At the same time, the state system was changed to a federal system. The country's name is the New Panu Federation, or the New Country for short. Zhang Yaping will serve as the first president for a 5-year term, and the election will be held after 5 years. The parliament is composed of 9 members, who are elected by voters in their respective constituencies on the 9 islands. Except for a minor revision of the presidential power in the constitution, the rest of the laws follow the laws of the previous regime. A federation with only 9 islands is undoubtedly a bit ridiculous in the eyes of various media. So much so that many Western media are hesitating whether this news should be placed in the current affairs section or the entertainment section. Then, a BBC reporter asked why the country's name is named in Chinese. Zhang Yaping explained that 36% of the island's residents are Chinese, and Chinese is listed as a common language on the island along with English and Dutch. This is a decision made in consideration of language habits, so don't overinterpret it. At this time, another reporter raised a very sharp question. President Edward relied on the military to dictate, and what guarantees do you have that you will not follow the same path as him? Zhang Yaping felt a little bitter about this question, but there was no expression on his face. He lightly announced a word that shocked all reporters: defense contracting system. The defense of the Panu Islands will be completely contracted by the Starring Trading Company. The Starring Trading Company has the right to recruit mercenaries in or outside Panu and undertake the protection of Panu. The Starring Trading Company is directly responsible for the Constitution and does not need to obey the president. The employment costs are compensated by customs duties and land rents. After hearing Zhang Yaping's explanation, all reporters had a thought in their minds. It's crazy. In this way, it is equivalent to completely handing over the country's military power to private individuals and operating the army in the mode of operating a business. Will such an army have combat effectiveness? Can such an army guarantee national security? Is such an army itself safe? But after calming down, these reporters changed their minds and thought that such a thing is not unprecedented in the world. At present, the US military is the most dependent on private contractors in the world. More than 60% of the annual budget of the US Department of Defense is paid to contractors. In addition to completing the most basic military duties, the current US soldiers outsource all military affairs. From the research and development and manufacturing of weapons to the logistics services related to food, drink, defecation, and urination, private contractors are everywhere. Government ownership and private contracting can not only save a lot of costs, but also pass the trouble of pensions for fallen soldiers to private enterprises. Since there is a precedent, this system is not completely undesirable. It's just that these reporters have never heard of such a thorough transfer of the entire Ministry of Defense to private contractors. It has to be said that when it comes to laziness, this small country is at the forefront of the world. For a time, this small country with a population of only 20,000 rarely appeared on the homepage of international news several times. At the same time, the Starring Trading Company also appeared in many well-known newspapers. All kinds of irresponsible speculations have emerged about this company that the public has never heard of. Some people say that there may be oil underground in the Panu Islands, and that this Starring Trading Company is just a subsidiary controlled by a large oil consortium, and the investor is likely to be from the United States. Some people also speculate that this may be the work of China, paving the way for intervening in overseas affairs. Of course, no one guessed the relationship between Starring Trading Company and Future International. After all, the two have nothing to do with each other. Before the ship left West Africa, Jiang Chen cancelled the Future Security Company registered in Niger and transferred the equipment and remaining personnel of the military base to the other two ships. As for the infrastructure that could not be transferred, he sold it to the Niger government at cost price. The two ships will take the Cape of Good Hope route and take a long detour to the Panu Islands. On the other side, after the insurgents sent President Edward and his family to prison, they immediately surrounded Johnny's villa in anger. This time they were much more careful. Learning from the failure of the last attack on Johnny's villa, they mobilized the only armored vehicle that survived the civil war. With the cover of the armored vehicle, they were undoubtedly much more confident. However, when they arrived at Johnny's villa, they found that someone had been here. The iron gate of the courtyard wall was lying on the lawn several meters away, as if it had been hit by a car. The wall seemed to have been swept by large caliber bullets, and some places were broken into several pieces. In particular, the machine gun position surrounded by sandbags on the roof was swept into a pile of sand by bullets. Many walls were broken into pieces, and no one knew what weapon was so powerful. The bodies in the villa had not been cleared yet, and all the dead had bullets piercing their left chests. The murderer's marksmanship was extremely terrible, and even the mercenary hiding behind the wall had a bullet piercing his heart. Finally, the insurgents found Johnny's body and 4 women imprisoned in the basement. 3 of the women were locals, 1 was even a married woman, and 1 was even in junior high school. They were originally registered dead because of a car accident, but they were indeed imprisoned in their villa by this villain. Another woman was a reporter from Australia who was captured when she sneaked into Johnny's villa for an undercover investigation. After this incident was exposed, it caused an uproar in Australian public opinion. However, Johnny was already dead, and there was no point in denouncing the crime of a corpse, not to mention that the old regime had been overthrown. After boiling for a while, the matter subsided. Later, the 4 victims received a generous compensation, signed by the new government. It is said that the money was donated by an anonymous wealthy businessman, which can be regarded as a little insignificant compensation for the unfortunate people. Of course, these are all later stories. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 331, Maintain Neutrality. The next day, the 9-star flag flew over the Panu Islands. People cheering for the new regime took to the streets, celebrating the advent of freedom and the rebirth of the country, as if they were celebrating Christmas and New Year's Eve. At noon, in the restaurant of the presidential palace, Jiang Chen and Zhang Yaping sat on either side of the long table. Lunch was curry lamb risotto, with a strange coconut aroma, quite a South Asian flavor. On Zhang Yaping's table was a steak and a glass of coconut juice. Facing the change of regime, only the chef and the entire presidential palace was the calmest. The Americans have thrown us an olive branch, hoping that we will join their camp, and said that, if we continue the pro-American policy of the previous regime and issue a declaration that is beneficial to their international position, they will increase their aid loans to us. While laboriously dissecting the steak with a knife and fork, Zhang Yaping talked to Jiang Chen about today's state affairs. Jiang Chen did not raise his head and said without any euphemism, decline. But, that's $10 million. Zhang Yaping looked a little reluctant and said with difficulty, after all, that was $10 million. Even if it was distributed to each islander, there would be $500. All they needed to do was to say a few words in front of the media. Anyway, not many people would listen to them. This was just a palm-sized archipelago. The area of all the islands combined was not even as big as a province in neighboring Australia. Jiang Chen raised his head and glanced at Zhang Yaping unhappily. Someone paid you to scold your mother. What did you do? There was no need to think about it. With the faces of those Americans, they were just trying to win over a bunch of Southeast Asian hooligans to promote the threat of China's rise to neighboring countries. The Panu Islands are located in the southeast of the Philippines. If they are thick-skinned, they can be considered as neighboring countries to get involved. Zhang Yaping shook his head vigorously, but silently added in his heart, it depends on how much. It's only $10 million. My Future Man International has a profit of $200 to $300 million every month. If you need that little money, I can lend you some. Jiang Chen said slowly, taking a bite of fried rice. Fried rice. Just pay it back with land. Ahem. Can I understand that you are showing off your wealth? Zhang Yaping said with a wry smile. The Panu Islands have just issued a tax reduction measure to stimulate economic recovery, but the funding gap is still large. The mess that Edward created now needs to be filled by their successors. I just want to give you some confidence. The reason why I chose this place is naturally because I'm optimistic about the development prospects here. Jiang Chen said easily. Johnny Group has declared bankruptcy, and the $10 billion project has also fallen through. What prospects are there here? Zhang Yaping's expression was a little bitter. At the beginning, he rose up with a passion, but now that he was elected president, he realized the hardships of governing the country. No, I can do that project. Zhang Yaping looked at Jiang Chen in surprise. $10 billion. Can you take it out? I believe there are many banks willing to provide loans to Future International. Jiang Chen said confidently. This is true. Even in China at that time, many banks went to Sun Jiao to beg her for loans. Futureman International currently has a liquidity of $1.5 billion, which is a revenue for more than 5 months. Although the 10 billion US dollars is a bit scary, it is believed that it is still easy to get it if the shares of Futureman Technology are used as collateral. Moreover, it actually costs less than 10 billion US dollars. Are you really willing to loan 10 billion US dollars for this small island country? Zhang Yaping looked at Jiang Chen in disbelief and asked. Of course, I believe this can bring me no less than 100 billion in returns. Hearing this, Zhang Yaping took a breath. He really couldn't imagine how this small island country with a GDP of no more than 100 million US dollars and a population of only 20,000 could create a value of 100 billion US dollars. Excuse me, I find it difficult to understand. Although the waters of the Panu Islands are vast, there is no oil. Can you give me some advice? Even if it's just a pie in the sky. Zhang Yaping smiled bitterly. What do you mean? Well, okay. First of all, the territorial waters of the Panu Islands are close to the equator. Close to the equator? Zhang Yaping's eyes widened. Are you referring to tourism? Even with the tourism industry, it would be difficult to recover the cost of 10 billion US dollars in 10 years, right? It's a bit difficult to explain to you. Anyway, just remember what I said. Putting down the spoon in his hand, Jiang Chen slowly stood up. The equator has many benefits, and it's not just as simple as tourism. Take the space elevator for example. For non-equatorial countries, this is a no-brainer. This technology appeared in the 1950s, and Jiang Chen is still very confident that he can bring it to the present world. Are you ready to leave? Zhang Yaping also put down his knife and fork, looking up at Jiang Chen who was about to leave. I have something else to do, and I'm full. By the way, if it's other countries. Jiang Chen stopped, turned back and smiled. Adhere to neutrality and friendly exchanges. You know what I mean. Zhang Yaping sighed helplessly. I understand. Work hard and maintain your image of clean governance. When your term is over, I will give you a pension. I don't need your pension. I just hope that you will lead this country to prosperity as you promised. Hearing this, Jiang Chen looked at Zhang Yaping with some surprise. There are not many people who can reject the temptation of money these days. After a pause, Jiang Chen said softly, of course, I promise. If everything goes well, in less than 5 years, this place will become an island that people all over the world yearn for. Under the shade of the trees outside the presidential palace, a blue Lamborghini was parked there, and Aisha was sitting in the driver's seat. A grey sports vest outlined her beautiful curves, and a pair of sunglasses were inserted in the collar of her chest, which made passers-by look back frequently. This Lamborghini was originally John's car, but now it belongs to Jiang Chen. Although the person is dead, the crime cannot be escaped. After the court charged Johnny with 17 crimes, all his properties in the Panu Islands were confiscated to fill the national treasury. His luxury cars, mansions and 2 yachts in the Panu Islands were all listed for auction at an Australian auction house. Jiang Chen took them down after only raising the bid twice. After all, it was a relic, and the rich were afraid of death. It was unlucky to use the things of someone who had died a violent death. But Jiang Chen didn't care much about these empty things. He was a thorough materialist. He opened the car door and sat in the passenger seat. Aisha put her hands on the steering wheel and looked at Jiang Chen sideways, wearing sunglasses. Where are we going? To the construction site of Linhua Group. Aisha nodded gently and started the car skillfully. Leaning back on the comfortable seat, Jiang Chen looked at the passing scenery outside the window, trying to keep as many of these scenes in his heart as possible. This feeling was really indescribable. Some time ago, he was still wandering around, but now he has become the master behind the scenes of an entire archipelago. This is his kingdom. No conspiracy can plot against him here, and no one can shamelessly reach out to his company. Perhaps he was tired of watching. Jiang Chen cast his eyes back into the car and looked at Aisha who was concentrating on driving. Sunglasses and a small vest, this cool look is also very pleasing to the eye, and it always feels that all kinds of clothes are suitable for her. As if she noticed Jiang Chen's gaze, Aisha's cheeks were slightly red, and the corners of her mouth were slightly raised. She enjoyed this sight. Although they are not married yet, she has already identified him as her husband in her heart. As a traditional Syrian bride, in her concept, her husband is everything in her life. Chapter 332, Linhua Group loses all its money. The new country was established. If anyone had to say who suffered the greatest economic loss, it would probably be the Linhua Group, which was busy on the construction site. The fall of the old regime and the bankruptcy of Johnny International turned the $10 billion contract in Linhua Group into a piece of waste paper. As for the 2 gold mines that served as asset guarantees for Johnny International, it was just a trick used by Roberts, the old fox, to build a show. First, he found 2 abandoned mines, and then hired geological surveyors to re-explore the mines and falsify the reserves of the gold mines. Then he took the gold provided by Jiang Chen and registered the output in South Africa, went through the tax process, and fabricated a beautiful fourth quarter output report. Then, the 2 gold mines stopped production under Roberts' operation, and the reason was business adjustment. After all this, the value of the 2 gold mines was $10.3 billion, and the asset guarantee was successfully completed. It is still easy to inflate asset guarantees. After all, it is not an asset sale, and the auditors generally do not come to the site to survey the mines. Roberts even told Jiang Chen that even without this batch of gold, he could complete the asset certification process by borrowing gold from other mines. Many mines are happy to help because it means someone is willing to share part of the tax for them. Facing the international capital generated by market competition, Linhua Group, a company spoiled by policies, is just a toddler. How can it beat Roberts, an old man who dares to cheat even the FBI? The project team of Linhua Group did carefully review the 50-page asset certification document, but never thought that the stamp of the South African government itself was watered. As soon as Johnny International went bankrupt, the 2 gold mines were thrown into the hands of Linhua Group. But when Wang Linhua wanted to cash it out, he found that the 2 gold mines on hand were all waste mines. Johnny International tampered with the reserves of the gold mines, and the asset certification report was false. As if struck by a thunderbolt, Wang Linhua fainted immediately after learning the news. He was taken to the hospital by ambulance and directly to the emergency room. Lost all the money. Only this word can describe the loss suffered by Linhua Group, or the loss of the Wang family. In this overseas project worth 10 billion yuan, Linhua Group has currently invested about $2.5 billion. Now the first phase of the project has been completed, but Johnny International went bankrupt on the eve of paying the first phase of the project. The huge loss of $2.5 billion in the first quarter will undoubtedly blind the eyes of the entire board of directors. However, not long ago, Wang Linhua increased his holdings of Linhua Group's shares through the secondary market. The west coast of Koro Island is home to the most beautiful scenery on the island. The deep blue shallow sea emits a moving arc of light under the light, just like the skirt of the goddess of the sea. The bright and dark reefs are looming under the ups and downs of the tide, dividing the waves into magnificent arcs. Verdant islands are dotted between Koro Island and the second largest island, Garin Island, connected by deep or shallow sandbanks, forming a natural maze. Driving on the coastal road on the west coast, Jiang Chen rolled down the window and looked out at the beautiful scenery of the island from afar and couldn't help but exclaim, "It's so beautiful. Do you want me to drive slower?" Aisha whispered. "No, let's go faster." Looking at the seagulls in the sky, Jiang Chen narrowed his eyes. "Drive the boring people away from my island as soon as possible." Pursing her lips, Aisha reached out to change gears. "Hold on tight." The engine roared. The speed quickly soared to 160 miles per hour, turning into a blue shadow and rushing towards the destination. This speed may be dangerous for ordinary people, but it is not a big deal for Aisha, who has been injected with gene enhancement drugs. Soon, the car drove to the station of Linhua Group. After parking the car on the side of the road, Jiang Chen saw from a distance that a circle of people had gathered at the entrance of Linhua Group. The islanders were holding hoes to loosen the soil, machetes to cut bananas, and even sugar cane sticks to surround the entrance of Linhua Group. Everyone's face was very excited, and they looked like they were ready to force their way in. Militiamen holding rifles maintained order. These people were all insurgents who participated in the coup. After the war, they were not completely disbanded. Some of them were directly incorporated into the police team and retained as a security force. Indicating Aisha to stay in the car and wait for him, Jiang Chen got out of the car and walked straight to the door. What happened here? Jiang Chen asked casually when he walked to the side of a policeman. The bearded policeman frowned and was about to ask Jiang Chen to stay aside, but when he saw the pass signed by Zhang Yaping in person in Jiang Chen's hand, he immediately restrained his impatient look. It's about the land acquisition compensation. Jiang Chen understood immediately. Some time ago, Linhua Group and Johnny International agreed on a land acquisition compensation of $2 per square meter. This was indeed a bit extreme. Now that Johnny International has gone bankrupt and the old Panu regime has collapsed, these people will certainly not tolerate such an unequal treaty. Seeing that the situation was not right, Wang Shai and Feng immediately called the police. Although these policemen were also dissatisfied with the Linhua Group, the law still had to be enforced, so they dispatched police forces to control the situation. But these islanders were still blocking here, waiting for an explanation. I'll go in and take a look. The police hesitated, but still made way for Jiang Chen to go in. There was a row of iron houses in the station. The valuable equipment was taken to the warehouse by the workers and locked up to prevent the mob from robbing or smashing it. As for the workers, they all put on helmets and held sticks, guarding the construction site, as if they were ready to fight. If there is a conflict with the locals, the outsiders will definitely suffer. Although they are armed, everyone is praying that there will be no conflict. Now it is a riot. If they are really beaten to death by the mob, there is no way to complain. Seeing someone coming, they were nervous at first, but when they saw the face of a fellow villager, they soon breathed a sigh of relief. Although there are many Chinese people on this island, for those of them who often travel around, they can tell at a glance whether they are native Chinese. A worker with dark skin came up to Jiang Chen and asked impatiently, "What's the situation outside?" Seeing the anxious expression on his face, Jiang Chen smiled comfortingly. "Don't worry, the president of Xingu has understood the situation and is coordinating to deal with this matter." The worker breathed a sigh of relief, wiped the sweat on his forehead, smiled at Jiang Chen, showing a mouthful of white teeth. "Are you from the embassy? How can there be an embassy in such a small place like the Panu Islands?" "No, but I'm here to help you arrange your return home." Hearing that he could go home, the worker's face flashed with joy. "Great, haha. Brother, we are all looking forward to going home. The construction period has been dragging on, and there has been no progress at all. The situation outside is getting more and more dangerous. A month ago, we could still go to the street to buy some fruits, but now we dare not even leave the door of this station. Alas, you have suffered." Although Jiang Chen hated the greedy faces of the Wang family, he did not hate these ordinary workers. It is better to say that it is a very gratifying thing to be able to see his compatriots in a foreign land. After all, they are his compatriots. Seeing his compatriots encounter danger outside, Jiang Chen will naturally not sit idly by. "No, no." The black-faced worker waved his hand. "You are here to see Manager Wang. Do you need me to take you there?" "No, just tell me the location." The worker did not insist and pointed to the cement house behind the construction site. "That's his office, at the end of the corridor on the second floor." After saying goodbye to the worker, Jiang Chen walked towards Wang Shai and Feng's office. Chapter 333 I just appreciate the way you can't stand me, but can't get rid of me. There was a knock at the door. Wang Shai and Feng, who was sitting at his desk and talking on the phone, frowned. He said a few words to his sister, who was taking care of his father, hung up the phone, and cleared his throat. "Come in." The door opened, and the person who came in surprised Wang Shai and Feng so much that his eyes almost popped out. Jiang Chen? Yes, you recognize me?" Jiang Chen sat casually on the sofa in the office, looked at Wang Shai and Feng and smiled. It is said that this Wang Shai and Feng is Wang Linhua's son, and he does look a bit like him. There is a hint of arrogance between his eyebrows. "What are you doing here?" Wang Shai and Feng frowned. He really couldn't figure out why Jiang Chen was here. Does Futureman Technology still have business in this broken place? Few of the natives here use smartphones. Of course, it's to ask you to leave here. Jiang Chen looked at Wang Shai and Feng with a smile. Wang Shai and Feng thought he had heard it wrong. "What? Please leave here." Jiang Chen repeated, and at the same time, took out a piece of paper from his pocket, folded it into a paper airplane, and flew it to Wang Shai and Feng's desk. Dissatisfied with Jiang Chen's attitude, Wang Shi and Feng's eyes moved back and forth between Jiang Chen and a paper airplane on the desk, and finally suppressed his anger, and opened the paper. His eyes scanned the lines of black and white on the paper, and his chest rose, and fell with shock and anger, and his breathing became more and more rapid. This is impossible. We have invested 2.5 billion in this project. The government of Xinguo is simply farting. They can't just send us away like this. I will go to President Zhang now. Although the wording of this notice was euphemistic, the meaning was very strong. Johnny International's actions in the Panu Islands were illegal, and it did not recognize the land transfer terms signed by the previous government and Linhua Group. As he said, Wang Shi and Feng got up from his office chair and walked towards the door, but he froze as soon as he reached the door. At this time, he suddenly remembered that the Linhua Group's base seemed to be surrounded by islanders. Jiang Chen crossed his legs and reminded him unnecessarily, "I advise you not to go out now. The islanders at the door must be eager to kill you." A drop of cold sweat slid down his forehead, and Wang Shi and Feng thought of Johnny, who died tragically in the basement. Thinking of a cooperative relationship between Linhua Group and Johnny International, those mobs might regard him as Johnny's accomplice, even if he did not bully men and women here. He walked back to his office chair stiffly and sat down. At this time, his eyes looked at Jiang Chen again. "Why are you here?" Wang Shi and Feng's eyes flickered. He felt that this matter was related to Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen did not hide it and said bluntly, "Because my Future People International is the next buyer of the project, and the new government is very satisfied with the compensation plan we offer." Next buyer? Wang Shi and Feng's heart was shocked. How is it possible? When did you internet people reach out to the real estate industry? Internet plus tourism? You can understand it that way. And who said we must build houses ourselves? It's okay to outsource the construction project. Don't look at me like that. I mean, I will never outsource it to you. It's better for you to get out as soon as possible, so as not to delay my construction period, Jiang Chen said with a pleasant face. You. Wang Shi and Feng looked at Jiang Chen's smiling face. His face turned pale with anger, and the finger pointing at him trembled. Everyone knows that the first phase of the project is the most difficult and the most expensive. They invested 2.5 billion in the first phase of the project, mobilized the most advanced equipment and the most professional employees in the group, and must lay a solid foundation for the project. This is not a tofu dregs that can be fooled around in China. This is the first overseas business of Linhua Group. It will become a postcard and a model for Linhua Group to negotiate business with other overseas customers in the future. When they receive overseas orders, their salesman will be able to proudly point to the Panu Islands on the map, take out pictures of the completed projects, and promote their performance and capabilities to those overseas customers. It can be said that the significance of this billion-dollar order is not only the billions of dollars in profits, but also a signboard for entering the world. Linhua Group cannot lose this business. Then, his expression showed a hint of pleading. We have been working for more than 2 months and have invested 2.5 billion US dollars. You can't just let us go. No one is more familiar with the entire project than us. Can we not pay for the first phase of the project? At least let us do the next 3 phases. This humiliation tortured Wang Shi and Feng so much that he wanted to commit suicide. He was the heir of a real estate company with a market value of tens of billions, but now he had to bow to a dog that the Wang family once raised. His proud self-esteem was almost tormented and collapsed. It must be said that until his heart was there, he had not yet recognized the truth of the facts. "I refuse," Jiang Chen said with a smile. "By the way, your project is carried out under the condition of illegal occupation of land, so you have to pay a fine for it. Of course, the fine will not be much, only about 10 or 20 million US dollars. I believe that with your company's financial resources, this fine is insignificant. Illegal occupation of land? This is impossible. We have a contract." Wang Shi and Feng's eyes were red. All contracts signed with the previous regime are waste paper. Wang Shi and Feng's body shook, and his face turned pale as he looked at Jiang Chen. You knew about the coup from the beginning, right? Of course, I happen to have some friendship with, the boss of Xinghuan Trading Company. The fact that he himself is a chairman of Xinghuan Trading Company has not been made public. Even if someone knows it, it is definitely not many. After all, until half a month ago, the total assets of this trading company were only 3 warehouses. Not only was it registered in the Panu Islands, but even the business matters were completely entrusted to professional managers in New Zealand, and it was purely operated as an offshore company. Why didn't you tell us? Have you forgotten the kindness of our Wang family to you? Wang Xianfeng had lost his mind and roared. Why should I tell you? What have you done to help me? Jiang Chen spread his hands and said innocently. Wang Xianfeng's expression froze. Since you are the heir of Linhua Group, you must know what your father said to me that night. Jiang Chen said with a smile. Hearing this, Wang Xianfeng's Adam's apple moved up and down, and he wanted to say something to quibble but couldn't speak. I didn't plan to leave, but I just took out a Future Man 1.0, and you can't sit still and want to reach out to pick the fruit? You are really shameless. Please allow me to use this word to describe your father and your uncle. Hearing this, the furious Wang Xianfeng calmed down. The expression on his face also turned cold. Aren't you afraid that your family will get into trouble? I know that your family is still in the country. Wang Xianfeng stared at Jiang Chen and said in a threatening tone. Of course we are not afraid, because they are traveling in Hong Kong now and will immigrate to the Panu Islands in a few days. Your Wang family is so powerful, can you reach out to the Special Administrative Region to detain overseas Chinese? Jiang Chen laughed. Overseas Chinese? You? Wang Xianfeng's eyes widened. That's right. They have now joined the new country's nationality and voluntarily given up their original nationality. Jiang Chen sighed. This is not the best choice, but it is the safest choice. He no longer wants to let those troubles bother him. Although the country may not do such a low-level thing as holding hostages, it is hard to guarantee that some villains will not get carried away and have bad ideas. It took some effort to persuade his parents to immigrate, but it was finally successful. The 2 old people still yearn for the outside world. After all, they have worked hard in that small factory for half their lives and have not even left the province a few times. Now that their son has made progress, the 2 old people are also happy to go out and see. But people are old after all, and they have many concerns. The reason why they are a little hesitant to go abroad is that on the one hand, they can't bear to cause trouble to their son, and on the other hand, they are reluctant to leave their old house. But Jiang Chen promised them that, if they miss their hometown, they can go back to visit their relatives at any time. Wang Xianfeng's lips trembled. He really couldn't think of any way to threaten Jiang Chen. As Jiang Chen said, the Wang family has some power in China, but their hands really can't reach overseas. Seeing that Wang Xianfeng had nothing to say, Jiang Chen smiled and stood up. You'd better complete the evacuation within 3 days, otherwise the security forces may forcibly expel you. By the way, all this is within the framework of the law. You guy. Wang Xianfeng clenched his fists tightly, wishing to rush up and beat him up. But he restrained himself after all. This is not his country. If he caused trouble, his uncle would not be able to help him suppress it. Fortunately, he restrained himself. If he really rushed up, who knows who would beat him. I just appreciate the way you can't stand me, but can't get rid of me. Seeing that he didn't take action, Jiang Chen said with a smile. After adjusting his collar, Jiang Chen opened the door of the office and walked out. Since you helped me vent my anger, I will arrange a car to take you to the airport safely, along with the employees of your group. By the way, please tell your father a message for me. A gentleman's revenge is never too late, although it has only been a few months. After saying that, Jiang Chen smiled slightly, leaving Wang Xianfeng with a face as ugly as if he had eaten shit, and walked away without looking back. When Jiang Chen left the Linhua Group's residence, the islanders at the door had not dispersed yet, but were increasing in number. The excited islanders waved the sugarcane sticks in their hands, which was quite funny. Looking back at the workers in the construction site, Jiang Chen thought for a moment, and then shouted to the islanders. Be quiet, everyone calm down. Hearing Jiang Chen's shout, the islanders looked over. First of all, I'd like to make it clear that I'm not from the Linhua Group. Seeing those unfriendly eyes, Jiang Chen coughed and clarified. Hearing that Jiang Chen was not from Linhua Group, the islanders immediately lost interest. However, just as they continued to argue, Jiang Chen continued to shout. But I have already reached an agreement with the people from Linhua Group. Their project will be taken over by our Future People International. You may not have heard of this name, but it doesn't matter. We will discuss with your new president a price you can accept to compensate for your lost land. If you believe your president, then disperse first. The islanders looked at each other, and one of them, a slightly burly brown-skinned man, walked up to Jiang Chen and spoke in Chinese mixed with English. Is what you said true? Of course. Jiang Chen nodded. The man turned around and discussed with the islanders. In the end, they seemed to have reached a consensus, and the man stood in front of Jiang Chen. We believe in our new president. But, as he said, the man pointed in the direction of Linhua Group. They are not allowed to leave until the compensation is confirmed. No problem. Jiang Chen smiled. Seeing the islanders gradually disperse, the police on duty breathed a sigh of relief and walked to Jiang Chen's side. Thank you, man. If it weren't for you, this matter would be really difficult to handle. It's okay. It's just a piece of cake. Besides, some people are innocent. Chapter 334 Crescent Moon Island. The trial of President Edward took place on the 5th day after the coup. On that day, almost all Panu people stayed at home, watching the live broadcast of the trial on TV. In the end, the Supreme Court of New Zealand sentenced former President Edward to 17 crimes including treason, confiscated all his property, and executed him at the end of the month. This result was supported by all the people of New Zealand, and those who were persecuted wanted to peel off his skin and beat his menstrual blood. Of course, New Zealand is a civilized country, and it is naturally impossible to execute the death penalty in such a barbaric way. Intravenous injection will be his final destination. As for the surrendered soldiers, considering that they fought out of duty, the court did not impose excessive punishment on them for their actions in the coup. The general was only prosecuted for accepting bribes and sentenced to 10 years in prison. At the same time, the former government army was disbanded. After the situation stabilized, this small country with a population of only 20,000 quickly faded out of the sight of the world media and returned to its secluded peace. However, in contrast, this small country has appeared in the sight of many capitalists. Because of a billion-dollar order, the infrastructure reconstruction project that has completed the first phase of the project will be open to real estate companies around the world for bidding again. It is expected that the amount of this large order will be more than $7 billion. The most troublesome first phase of the project has been completed by Linhua Group free of charge, and the remaining 3 phases of the project are not too difficult. Of course, considering the stability of the new regime and the previous experience of Linhua Group, the audit of asset certification by various real estate companies has become much stricter. However, when they heard that the tenderer of the project was Future International, all their concerns disappeared. An internet company with a monthly income of more than $300 million has no doubt about its ability to pay. It is better to say that the real estate developers in various places hope that Future International will not be able to pay. In this way, they can make a claim for equity compensation, and after obtaining the shares, they will find a way to get Future Technology listed on Nasdaq. They will make a lot of money if the price-earnings ratio is 20 times. Of course, Jiang Chen is absolutely impossible to have no money to pay. For a time, various investors also set their sights on this isolated island. Even if they could not get the billion-dollar order, it would be a good choice to share a share of the development of this island with the big investors. The engine of the yacht roared, and Jiang Chen stood on the bow and looked at the skyline, letting the sea breeze blow his hair. The yacht was bought at the auction of Johnny's assets. The captain of the yacht was an old fisherman named Kachi, who was introduced by Jiang Chen's warehouse manager cousin. This brown-skinned aboriginal was fluent in Chinese and English. It was said that he had been to Yangcheng, China, when he was young, and had done business there. After the business failed, he returned to his hometown and started fishing, and he has been doing it for more than 20 years. How long will it take? We're almost there. The old fisherman grinned and continued to speed up the yacht. The speed of 50 knots was raging on the sea. With only a wave, the boat would float up like flying. However, the fisherman was a good boat driver. No matter how erratic the waves were, the yacht was still as steady as a rock. Aish nervously grasped Jiang Chen's hand, and the other hand tightly grasped the iron railing. Jiang Chen was very brave and did not look scared at all. He just stood facing the wind and breathed in the fresh air. Soon, a small island gradually emerged from the skyline. "See it?" the old fisherman shouted, accompanied by a hearty laugh. "Haha, I see it." Jiang Chen couldn't wait to take out the telescope and looked at his island. Yes, this is his island. As the biggest winner in the coup, Xinghuan Trading Company not only obtained the commission of contracting national defense and was allowed to form an army on behalf of the new government, but also obtained the authorization to build a 100 square meter military outpost on Jiao Island. In addition, Crescent Island, 150 kilometers west of Koro Island, the capital of the new country, was also permanently leased to Xinghuan Trading Company by the new country for the construction of a military base. As its name suggests, the island is like a crescent moon. The island is covered with lush forests and tropical vegetation. The terrain is slightly higher in the middle, and the two wings are relatively flat. The beach in the bay is shallow and can become a sandbar at low tide. If you look down at the whole island at this time, you can see the full moon. Because the tides are very similar to the full moon and the waning moon, this island is also called the Yink Island. It is one of the few islands named in Chinese in the Panu Islands. Because the area is too small and there is no fresh water source on the island, this is an uninhabited island and is not among the 9 Panu Islands. Although this beautiful scenery is somewhat ruined, it is indeed a good choice to use this place as a military base. When the yacht approached, Jiang Chen saw 2 ships anchored on one side of the island. Because there is no deep water port, the 2 ships cannot dock and stop broadcasting. They can only hang far away from the edge of the island and use small boats to transport people and supplies ashore. These people were transferred from the Niger military base. Most of them were Syrian Christians who were recruited by Jiang Chen as mercenaries on the way to escape. Although there was some semi-force meaning in it, when they found that Jiang Chen did not abuse them and had properly settled their families, they were still grateful to Jiang Chen. After several months of military training, they were almost integrated into their new identities. After a while, Jiang Chen will recruit soldiers in Panu. According to his plan, the military base will maintain a military force of 500 people in the first phase. While giving priority to the development of the Air Force, old warships will be purchased for modernization modification. Of course, this can be done slowly. After all, it is now a peaceful era, and the diplomatic relations between Singapore and its neighbors are still normal, and there is no urgent need to expand armaments. Should we dock directly, or go to the ship? The old fisherman shouted loudly with the sea breeze in his mouth. Go to the ship, Jiang Chen commanded. Okay. With a shout and the roar of the engine, the old fisherman drove the boat towards the ship. The distance of several kilometers passed in an instant. After tying the yacht with an iron chain, the people on the boat lowered the ladder, and Jiang Chen and Aisha climbed up first. When her feet touched the stable deck, Aisha staggered dizzily. Fortunately, Jiang Chen held her in time, otherwise she might have fallen into the sea. Are you seasick? Seeing Aisha's dizzy look, Jiang Chen couldn't help but curl his lips slightly. This was the first time he saw her so confused. A little bit. Aisha shook her head and said with her hand on her forehead, "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Jiang Chen couldn't help but complain. "Because I saw you were very happy when you were surfing." A blush appeared on her cold and pretty face, and Aisha buried her head and said softly. Seeing her so cute, Jiang Chen's heart beat a few times and swallowed his saliva. But at this moment, a light cough came from not far away. It was Ivan's old face with ravines and gulps, smiling playfully at Jiang Chen. "Boss, I really don't mean to be a light bulb, but everyone is watching." As he said this, Ivan also pouted to the side in a funny way. The soldiers on the deck whistled, waved, and cheered Jiang Chen, but the teasing in their eyes was obvious. Aisha blushed and buried her head behind Jiang Chen. Although she was always generous and proactive when they were alone, she was still not used to being intimate with Jiang Chen in front of others. Jiang Chen was furious. These guys who were disrespectful dared to laugh at their boss. "Get back to work. If I see you hanging around on the deck again, you won't be able to attend the barbecue party tonight," Jiang Chen shouted at the idlers. Hearing that there was a barbecue party in the evening, the soldiers immediately dispersed and returned to their jobs. Those who had nothing to do pretended to be busy and helped. After all, no one wants to go against barbecue, right? Jiang Chen then smiled and looked at Ivan. Ahem, boss, to prevent you from making a fool of yourself in front of your subordinates. Ivan smiled and waved his hand, feeling scared by Jiang Chen's look. Jiang Chen had finished joking around, and he also calmed down. That's enough joking around. Go to the captain's room, and wait for me. Bring that kid Bakary with you. Yes. Ivan said seriously, saluted, and left. Chapter 335 Military Base. After arranging Aisha to rest in an empty room, Jiang Chen went to the captain's room. When he arrived, Ivan and Bakary were already waiting there. Bakary was the black guy from Niger. He used to be the manager of Future Security Company and was responsible for the logistics operation of the military base. After Future Security Company was deregistered, Ivan asked him if he was willing to accept a job transfer and leave his hometown to go to the other side of the earth. Bakary agreed very readily. His only request was to bring his wife and children with him. For him who lives in Central Africa, being away from his poor hometown is almost a dream. Are you used to the climate here? Bakary smiled honestly, showing his white teeth, and said in broken English, I'm used to it, but it's a little damp. It's normal, after all, this is on the sea. Ivan grinned and patted the guy on the shoulder. Okay, let's get down to business. Ivan should have told you about it. Jiang Chen glanced at Ivan, then looked into Bakary's eyes and said, of course. Bakary nodded. At present, the relationship between Xinghuan Trading Company and Future People International is not open to the outside world. Bakary signed a confidentiality agreement before coming here. After signing this agreement, he will wear an electronic collar for a period of 10 years. As for the benefits, his salary will be increased from $400 per month to $100,000 per year, reaching the same level as Ivan and others. So what is your answer? I have no reason to refuse. Bakary smiled in a relaxed tone. Nodding, Jiang Chen took out the silicone collar from his pocket and handed it to Bakary. The black guy did not hesitate and put it on his neck in front of Jiang Chen. Don't take it too seriously. This thing just serves as a warning. I understand, but it feels weird to wear this thing. Bakary touched his neck and said, it will be fine after a while. Ivan smiled and patted his shoulder. Buddy, you are one of us now. Jiang Chen smiled, looked at Bakary and said, like before, the logistics of the military base will be left to you, including fresh water, food, and daily necessities. As for arms and ammunition, I have other channels to solve them. You just need to drag the things from the warehouse on Koro Island. Leave it to me. Bakary said confidently. Jiang Chen nodded, then looked at Ivan. I guess you have heard that the defense of the new country will be undertaken by our starring trading company. I plan to build a military base on this island, not the kind used for training. Do you have any suggestions for this military base? Ivan had served in Ukraine and was considered a veteran of the Soviet Union. Even if he was not an expert, he should have some unique insights into these things. Deep water port. The shallows near this island are too vast, and ships with slightly larger tonnage can't even get close. Without a deep water port, both the transportation of supplies and the flexibility of the army will be limited. The deep water port will definitely be built. And what about other aspects? Jiang Chen said. Barracks, training grounds, radar stations, helipads, runways, basically that's it. Ivan grinned. This island has a good area, and it's quite similar to the US military's Wake Island, but it's larger than it. Well, I will find someone to build the military base through bidding, and you can check it more. No problem. Ivan smiled. That's it for now. The meeting is adjourned. It took a whole afternoon to move. It was indeed a bit troublesome for the boat to go back and forth between the island and the ship. Jiang Chen had made up his mind to contact people to build the deep water port as soon as he returned tomorrow. Although it was tiring to move things and build houses, Jiang Chen found that everyone's face was filled with happiness and joy. In order to avoid the war started by the extremists, they led a displaced life with their families, and now they have finally settled down again. On the other side of the earth, on a picturesque island, they started a new life. Although it is now just a deserted island, no one doubts that tomorrow will be better. The enthusiasm for rebuilding their homes made everyone very motivated, and soon a number of marching tents were set up in the open space in the center of the island. At night, people gathered in the center of the island, lit a pile of bonfires, took out the ingredients stored in the ship, and held a barbecue party. Children ran in the camp, wives and husbands snuggled together, and people who loved excitement sat in a circle, bragging while eating meat and drinking. The aroma of barbecue filled the camp, just like a picnic. Later, Jiang Chen also joined in. A young man whose ancestral home was in Turkey enthusiastically invited him to taste the charred red turkey he roasted. The crispy and fragrant turkey on the outside and tender on the inside was so delicious that Jiang Chen almost swallowed his tongue. It feels great to feel the humid sea breeze and drink a refreshing cold beer. The barbecue party lasted until the early morning, and the people who had enjoyed themselves cleaned up the barbecue grills and the garbage on the ground. Although it was only half a day, they had already developed an indescribable sense of belonging to this small island. How to say it? Compared with Damascus, which was under constant bombing, life here was simply too wonderful. The next day, people did not stay in bed because of yesterday's revelry. Several months of military training had made them form a habit and woke up early in the morning. The men lined up in the open space and began a day of training under the leadership of the old instructor. The women and children also got up early because they wanted to see the sun rise over the sea. Since there were no extra tents prepared on the island, Jiang Chen and Aisha spent the night on the ship last night. It was shameful to say that compared with those diligent soldiers, Jiang Chen slept until noon before getting up from Aisha, who was so cuddly. After washing up, the two did not return to the island, but went directly back to the yacht. The military base issue still needed to be resolved by him. In order to return to Koro Island as soon as possible, he had to take a plane to Australia. The old fisherman had woken up long ago, and there was a bucket of fresh sea fish on the yacht. Seeing Jiang Chen, the old fisherman named Kachi was a little embarrassed. He got up early in the morning, and seeing that Jiang Chen was still not up, he drove the yacht out to sea to catch some fish. However, Jiang Chen just laughed and didn't care about the little oil he used. He asked him for 2 fish in a joking tone and asked him how to cook the fish to make it delicious. Seeing that Jiang Chen didn't care about him using the yacht's oil to smuggle goods, the old fisherman was relieved. While steering the wheel, he introduced how to deal with the sea fish, which parts can be eaten and which parts must be thrown away. Jiang Chen didn't hear very confidently, but Aisha listened carefully and secretly wrote it down on the app. The little girl thought Jiang Chen was suddenly interested in eating sea fish, so she secretly made up her mind to master this new cooking skill. As soon as the chatterbox opened, the old fisherman finished talking about the sea fish and started to brag about the interesting things he experienced when he went out to sea to fish. This time it was Aisha who showed little interest, but Jiang Chen listened with great interest. It was hard to imagine that the old fisherman could tell such a long list of interesting things about the boring fishing life that others thought was boring. In this relaxed and happy atmosphere, the 150-kilometer journey passed in a flash. Chapter 336 Trip to Australia. After getting off the boat at Koro Island, Jiang Chen did not stop. After instructing Kachi to drive the yacht back to his villa and park it, he flew to Australia alone and got off the plane in Melbourne. When Jiang Chen checked in at the business hotel near the airport, it was already 2 o'clock in the afternoon. He hadn't had lunch yet, so he found a Chinese restaurant to have a meal and then started today's itinerary. According to the bus route provided by the mobile phone map, he soon arrived at the building of a military company whose Chinese name was Mammoth. This company was introduced to Jiang Chen by Roberts. It is considered a relatively well-known military base contractor in the world. It has built military outposts for peacekeeping forces in Iraq. Roberts has had dealings with them in the arms business. After explaining the purpose of his visit to the pretty receptionist at the front desk, the company's boss soon came downstairs to personally receive Jiang Chen. The boss of this company is an Australian with a big beard named Thomas, who once served in the Australian Special Forces. Roberts had obviously checked with him in advance. After briefly asking Jiang Chen about the detailed requirements for the military base, he enthusiastically came up with more than a dozen construction plans. The geopolitical situation has eased recently, and his company has not encountered such a large order for a long time, which is why he is so enthusiastic. After 2 full days of discussion, the two sides finally finalized the construction plan. The total value of the contract is $400 million. The construction content includes a 4-berth deep water port, a radar base station, meteorological observation equipment, an airstrip, a coastal defense gun base, a missile base and other facilities, modeled after the layout of the Wake Island military base. Of course, due to restrictions on arms sales, these construction projects do not include missile launchers and large caliber artillery. Without the permission of the Australian government, Thomas dare not sell these big guys. But Jiang Chen is not rare. Can this 21st century missile be more powerful than the Cheyenne G-32 cruise missile? No matter how powerful the artillery is, can it be more powerful than the Type 50 electromagnetic gun? Although the manufacturing technology of the former has not yet been mastered, and the latter is only a tank-level electromagnetic gun, Jiang Chen believes that with further exploration of the end of the world, these NB things will be in his pocket sooner or later. In addition, this guy named Thomas also sold Jiang Chen 4 R-60 Black Hawk helicopters, with a unit price of $4 million, a total of $160 million. In addition, he also gave Starring Trading Company 8 helicopter pilot training places. With these 4 Black Hawks, the mobility of the military base on Crescent Island will be raised to a higher level. With the carrying capacity of these 4 Black Hawk helicopters, the soldiers of Starring Trading Company can quickly land on any of the 9 islands to deal with various emergencies. Before replacing new technology, it is still very good to use Black Hawk to transition. On the 3rd day, after arriving in Australia, the military base had been negotiated, and Mammoth Company had sent professionals to Crescent Island for inspection. According to Thomas, if everything goes well, they will be able to complete it in July this year. After dealing with the military base, Jiang Chen was not in a hurry to go back. The next day, Jiang Chen got up early and drove to the suburbs of northern Melbourne in the early morning. Victoria, located in the southeastern end of Australia, has Melbourne as its capital, and has always been known as the Garden State. Because it is close to the ocean, and has a warm and humid climate, it has the best vegetation and lush grasslands in Australia. Victoria has therefore become Australia's largest source of milk and agricultural and animal husbandry products. The farther the car is from the city, the fresher the air becomes. After getting off the car in front of a farm, Jiang Chen found the farmer who had just got off the farm truck. "Who are you?" "Jiang Chen." Jiang Chen introduced himself simply. The farmer, who had a big beer belly, took a towel and wiped the sweat off his face. "Jiang Chen? Chinese? I always feel like I've heard this name somewhere. Well, you can call me Luke. I'm the owner of this farm. Are you here to buy fresh milk?" "Fresh milk?" Jiang Chen asked in confusion. "Huh, isn't it?" The farmer looked at Jiang Chen with some surprise and put the towel on his thick neck. "Aren't you here to buy on behalf of others? Judging from your age, you should be an international student in Melbourne." Luke used the word buy on behalf of others in Mandarin. Jiang Chen couldn't help but feel ashamed. After all, Future International was nominated as one of the world's top 500 companies. As the chairman, he couldn't do the business of buying on behalf of others, no matter how idle he was. "Ahem, you misunderstood. I'm here to discuss big business." Luke looked at Jiang Chen suspiciously. As he was talking, a van stopped in front of the farm. A girl wearing a baseball cap got out of the car. When Luke saw the girl, he seemed to know her purpose, and went straight back to the farm. "Hello." The girl was quite lively, and greeted Jiang Chen enthusiastically. Jiang Chen smiled at her and asked casually, "Are you an international student in Melbourne?" The girl was also very talkative. She smiled cheerfully and said, "Yes, I'm studying business administration. I'm a junior this year. What about you?" "I'm not a student. I finished my studies 2 years ago." "Not an international student? Are you an expatriate?" the girl asked with a blink of her eyes. "Although it's true, I'm not an expatriate in Australia, but in Singapore." "Yes. Huh. Then where is your ancestral home?" "Haching. Haching. My family is in Shangjing." "Are you a purchasing agent?" "Why do you think I'm a purchasing agent?" Jiang Chen said helplessly. The girl looked at Jiang Chen in confusion, and then seemed to understand something, and kindly persuaded Jiang Chen. If you are buying for your family, it's better to buy it in the supermarket. Although the goods directly from the farm can be drunk, the packaging is very inconvenient, and it is still a bit unhygienic. What about you? Jiang Chen looked at her in confusion and asked. Of course I'm not bringing my family to drink. The girl rolled her eyes at Jiang Chen. I'm a purchasing agent, mainly selling on WeChat and Taobao. Oh, by the way, I recently opened a purchasing agent store on Taobao, and now I can earn my own tuition. As she said this, the girl's face was filled with pride. Compared with other poor students whose parents are supported by their parents to go abroad, there are not many rich second-generation students who can support themselves like her, neither relying on godfathers, nor adding burden to the family. But she would never have thought that the designer of Xiaobei was standing in front of her, chatting with her casually. Agent stores? Don't agent stores buy goods from supermarkets? Jiang Chen vaguely remembered that those advertisements were written like this. You are stupid. The girl rolled her eyes at Jiang Chen. Haven't you ever bought milk powder at Woolworths? Chinese customers can only buy 2 cans at a time. And it's expensive. My classmates and I sell dozens of cans every day in the online store. How can we buy from supermarkets? We get the goods directly from the farm, and then buy some empty cans of branded milk powder from the scrapyard. At this point, the girl seemed to react, and quickly stopped talking. Luke happened to come out carrying a big bag. The girl's eyes lit up, and she hurried to meet him. The Australian helped the girl carry the milk powder to the van, and put it away, and then took the dozen Australian dollars she handed over. Goodbye. The girl smiled sweetly at Jiang Chen, waved goodbye, and got on the car. Jiang Chen also waved his hand, and said goodbye to the girl, whose name he didn't know. A very polite girl. But she always felt that this sweet smile was a little distorted. Come on, buddy, what's your big business? Luke wiped his sweat, stood next to Jiang Chen and asked. Jiang Chen did not answer, but asked an irrelevant question. Is that milk powder safe? Luke was stunned, looked at Jiang Chen in confusion, and nodded. Of course it is safe. My farm has passed the quarantine procedures since the milk production stage. Although that batch of milk powder is private goods made by my friend's milk powder factory, the quality is definitely up to standard. After a long silence, Jiang Chen sighed as if giving up. As long as it is safe. Of course, I'm not here to buy milk powder, I'm just a little curious. Forget it, let's talk about business. Chapter 337 Domestic Public Opinion. Originally, the grain of Xinhuan Trading Company was imported from New Zealand, and the specific affairs were also handled by temporary professional brokers. However, as the demand for supply increased, this operating model was naturally no longer applicable. This is what he planned. The farms and ranches in Australia supply goods and ship them to Koro Island in New Zealand through the port of Melbourne. Some of the products are directly sold by Xinhuan Trading Company in the market of the Panu Islands, and the other part is retained as raw materials for food processing and shipped to the end of the world. At the same time, the Xinglang food processing factory in Wanghai City will also be relocated to the Panu Islands. While retaining technicians willing to work overseas, it will hire local cheap labor to engage in production on the assembly line, processing cheap agricultural and animal husbandry products imported from Australia into raw canned food, pickled products, etc. Part of these finished products are sold locally, and the other part is shipped to the end of the world. In this way, not only does it save a customs tariff, but it also saves a lot of labor costs, and it is convenient for him to move food to the end of the world, which can be said to kill 3 birds with 1 stone. Of course, such a large deal, and a long-term supply, must not be done in such a hurry. Jiang Chen was just taking the lead. He happened to be in Australia, so he went there in person. As for the specific details of the transaction, he handed it over to the factory manager Zheng Hangji to discuss, and left Zheng Hangji's phone number to Luke. Then, with Luke's cheerful farewell, he took a taxi back to Melbourne. The flight was booked for tomorrow. Although there was still some time before dark, looking at the busy streets, he didn't know what to do alone, and couldn't help but secretly regret why he didn't bring Aisha with him. The little girl seemed to like beautiful clothes very much. He still remembered the date with her in Kiev that day. That day they almost bought out the entire clothing store, and some romantic things happened in the evening. Back to the hotel, where they were staying, Jiang Chen was a little lonely lying on the large double bed, so he took out his mobile phone. He happened to see the message sent by Liu Yao on Xiaobei's account, so he replied, "Are you there?" "Yes." "Did you miss me?" As expected by Jiang Chen, it was still a reply in seconds. Sometimes he couldn't help but wonder if this chick had set a special ringtone for him or something. With a smile on his lips, Jiang Chen was ready to tease her in a naughty way. "Guess I definitely didn't think so." Aggrieved. "Congratulations, you guessed wrong." Happy, with a smile on his lips, Jiang Chen poked the screen with his finger and continued typing. "By the way, how is the filming of your play going?" "It's almost finished. I've been exhausted these past few days." Bus. Liu Yao took a selfie and sent it to him. The 45-degree angle of the scissor hand facing up was playful and cute, while highlighting the proud 3060 ravine. A line of words was attached. "Does it look good?" Jiang Chen couldn't help laughing, poked the screen with his finger, and replied to her. "Good hate." Although she said she hated it, this chick didn't mean to hate it at all, and sent another selfie with a buzz. This one is even more provocative. Although it doesn't show anything, the artistic conception is more explicit than the previous one. Well, Jiang Chen was very disappointed. It must be said that time flies when chatting with beautiful women. Liu Yao is also very good at chatting. Jiang Chen didn't feel bored at all. The sky got dark unknowingly. Just when Jiang Chen was about to say goodnight, Liu Yao sent another message. "By the way, do you know that Weibo has been full of posts about you in recent days?" Weibo? Jiang Chen was stunned. Speaking of which, he did register a Weibo account and was certified as an Orange V by Xinlang company without authorization. The number of fans is millions. It's just that there are too many meaningless private messages like wanting to have a baby with him. A group of people would tag him for trivial matters. Jiang Chen, who was afraid of trouble, simply didn't bother to log into that account again. After saying goodnight to Liu Yao, Jiang Chen didn't go to bed immediately. Instead, he opened Baidu and searched his name directly. This search was amazing, and a lot of posts popped up. Some were negative, and some were positive. Family members fighting. Future Man International suddenly intervened in real estate development, and Linhua Group lost all its money and suffered a huge loss of $2.5 billion. In the face of interests, Chinese people are hard to change their nature of fighting among themselves. For negative news, Jiang Chen could guess the general idea by glancing at the title and clicked the cross without reading the content, let alone whether it was Linhua Group's water army. This kind of idiot who didn't understand the cause and effect at all, picked out part of the incident out of context and stood on the moral high ground to shoot map cannons. Jiang Chen was too lazy to read the stuff written by idiots, let alone explain anything. When he was in China, Linhua Group did not act like a weakling when it cheated him. It was negotiating with the attitude of "I just want to buy 50% of your shares. If you don't give it to me, don't think about continuing the business." Now that he has been cheated, he can only describe it as "you deserve it." Of course, there are also many positive posts, and in general, public opinion is still biased towards Jiang Chen's fans. After all, the rise of Future Man International marks that China is at the forefront of the world in the field of artificial intelligence. Although Future Man International has now moved to Singapore, Chinese netizens still tend to regard it as a national enterprise. Just like Alibaba's listing created the world's new richest man, Masayoshi Son, Japanese, but few people regard Alibaba as a Japanese company. In addition to these posts that are either praiseworthy or derogatory, Jiang Chen also saw a post with a more interesting point of view. Xinhuan Trading Company and Future Man International, the forces behind them may be the same. Overseas Chinese organizations may be playing a big game. The author of this post listed a lot of half-true and half-false evidence and gave full play to his imagination, linking these two seemingly unrelated companies together, claiming that the black hands behind the scenes controlling these two companies are actually some overseas Chinese organizations, including the coup in the Panu Islands. It was their behind-the-scenes manipulation. As for the establishment of this Chinese-speaking country, Xingo, it is even more a part of the plan behind it. and this organization is likely to have received secret support from the Chinese government. As for the well-known billionaire, born in the 1990s, Jiang Chen, he is just a pawn selected by the organization. Because the author's thinking is rigorous, the argument is clear, and the story is very strong. Many people have replied to the post, and the number of likes has exceeded 10,000. Many replies are also very interesting, such as, LZ knows so much, is the water meter okay? The United States will never sit idly by and watch China interfere in Pacific affairs. This coup is obviously the product of the game between major powers. LZ's IQ is worrying. What oversees Chinese organization? There should be a limit to imagination. The above person is not going to explain the sense. Just curse me and die first to cheer me up. The above person has a good rhythm. Take the 5 cents. Jiang Chen was very happy to see these posts, but if he really wanted to evaluate this post, he could only come up with one word to describe it after thinking for a long time. That is bullshit. Many conspiracy theories have the characteristic of being unfalsifiable, which is usually called difficult to prove innocence. Logically, any natural event can be portrayed as pre-planned afterwards. Of course, such remarks are like smoke bombs, and the more the better for Jiang Chen. His eyes were tired, and Jiang Chen threw his phone aside. Just as he was about to go to bed, the app on his left hand began to vibrate. He opened it, and saw that it was a message from Linling. Come back. Although he was confused why she didn't just open the video call to talk, Jiang Chen still got up from the bed. He walked to the window, closed the curtains, and then lay down on the bed to start the journey. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 338, Interdimensional Matter Transmission Device. Because they are in different time zones, Melbourne is 3 hours ahead of Wanhei. When Jiang Chen returned to the villa in the end of the world, the lights in the house were still on, and Sun Jiao and the others had not yet gone to bed. After greeting Sun Jiao, Jiang Chen went straight to Linling's laboratory. His intuition told him that this little girl Linling must have brought him some surprises. After pushing open the door of the laboratory, Jiang Chen saw Linling in a white coat. This little girl has a very strange dressing style. She likes to wear pre-war fashionable clothes inside, and then put on a long white coat that almost sweeps to her heels outside. Wow, it's fast. Seeing Jiang Chen, Linling put down the things at hand, and walked to the door with a smile. Looking at the expression on her face, Jiang Chen understood what she meant, and took out the pudding from the storage space, and put it in her hand. You didn't ask me to come back, just because you wanted to eat pudding, did you? Jiang Chen looked at her happily tearing the packaging bag and couldn't help but hold his forehead and said, of course not. Linling raised her eyebrows proudly, and then pointed the plastic spoon at the helmet on the experimental table with great momentum. Clang clang. It was a round plate, and in the center of the round plate was a fist-sized metal ball. Is this the golden apple? Jiang Chen asked in confusion, looking at the one in front of him. No, no, no. Linling proudly puffed out her chest and shook her index finger. Although part of the technical inspiration comes from that golden apple, the technical content is completely different. Oh, what's so special about yours? Jiang Chen laughed. That golden apple is a communication device that transmits a resonance signal, and mine is sent from matter. Linling smiled. Jiang Chen was moved and asked hurriedly, you mean, this thing can directly transmit matter from this world? Linling shook her head. It is obviously impossible to directly transport things from another dimension to this dimension. All physical quantities are invalid between dimensions. Even the most advanced technology in the 22nd century cannot achieve miracles beyond the framework of physics. Then you said that this thing can send matter, which surprised me for a while. Jiang Chen said helplessly. Hearing this, Linling smiled mysteriously, took the metal ball from the disk, and handed it to Jiang Chen. Put the metal ball in your storage space. Jiang Chen looked at her in confusion, took the metal ball from Linling's hand, and threw it into the storage space. Then put this on. As she said, Linling handed a soft plastic bracelet to Jiang Chen. According to Linling's instructions, Jiang Chen put the plastic bracelet on his hand. This thing is very light, and there is no feeling when wearing it on the wrist. In the middle of the bracelet is a rice-sized subcrystal, which faintly flickers with a faint green light. Just take something out of the storage space. Linling raised her lips proudly. Just take something, Jiang Chen muttered, and then followed Linling's instructions, connected his consciousness with the jump bracelet, and selected the Type 11 pistol floating in the subspace. However, something surprising happened next. The pistol did not appear in his hand, but appeared on the disc that originally held the golden apple. What's going on? Jiang Chen asked in surprise. It's just as I expected. Linling pinched her chin, nodded seriously, then walked to the disc, picked up the pistol, and returned it to Jiang Chen. Don't keep me in suspense. What on earth is this? After throwing the pistol back into the storage space, Jiang Chen glanced at the disc, and this time the pistol did not appear there. In short, it's a cross-dimensional material transmission device, or teleportation array for short. Linling walked to the whiteboard in the laboratory and drew 2 lines casually. These 2 lines represent 2 parallel worlds. Linling drew a circle between the 2 lines, and this circle represents a small universe. Small universe? Damn, Saint Seiya. Jiang Chen showed a strange expression on his face. Teacher Linling ignored Jiang Chen's distraction, wrinkled her nose, and patted the circle with her hand. You call this a storage space, but is it really just a convenient backpack? What is that? Jiang Chen frowned. I've already said it. Linling looked directly into Jiang Chen's eyes, her eyes flashing with excitement. It is a small universe, or subspace. It is independent of the macroscopic universe, parallel to all world lines, but infinitely close to all world lines. Theoretically, it is impossible to send matter into this small universe, but you can. Although existing science cannot explain your ability, we can use it. Use it? Jiang Chen muttered to himself thoughtfully, and took out a box of mango pudding from the storage space. That's right. After the bracelet is activated, it can continuously emit clean particle waves of a special frequency, interfering with your jump bracelet's recognition of the 4-dimensional coordinates. It is equivalent to inserting a backdoor in the computer program. By tampering with the 4-dimensional coordinates, the taken matter appears on this disk instead of the bracelet. Pudding. The disk flashed green light, and the clean particles in the space vibrated regularly. Like the pistol, the mango pudding did not appear in his hand, but appeared in the plate. Jiang Chen tried to put the pudding back into the storage space, but there was no response. It seems that this teleportation array is one way, and can only send things here, but not reverse. To put the things on the disk into the storage space. Linling's eyes lit up, and she smiled and snatched the box of pudding on the disk, hugged it in her arms, and rubbed it happily. Just put on this bracelet, and everything I take out of the storage space will appear on this disk. Even if I stand on the side of the real world? Jiang Chen was excited. If that was true, he wouldn't have to go back and forth dozens of times. At that time, he could just put on the bracelet, stand in the warehouse on the side of the real world, throw the goods that need to be transported into the storage space, and then throw them out, and that's it. That's right. Linling put her hands on her hips and smiled proudly. Haha. Great. Linling, you've helped me a lot. Excited Jiang Chen hugged Linling's shoulders and spun her around twice. Wow. What are you doing? Linling's face turned red, steam came out of her head, and she struggled helplessly. At this time, Jiang Chen also reacted and realized that his actions were a bit over the line, and hurriedly put her down. Sorry, ahem. A little too excited. Looking at Linling's face, which was as red as a little apple, Jiang Chen scratched his head embarrassedly, and said with a wry smile, HMPH, HMPH. Linling hummed several times in succession, and unusually did not say a word. She picked up the 2 boxes of pudding she had received from Jiang Chen, buried her head, and ran out the door quickly. When she passed by Jiang Chen noticed that the blood-red blush had been creeping from her ears to her neck. Jiang Chen was stunned. Can cyborgs also blush? Chapter 339 Return to Hong Kong. After Linling stuffed the pudding into the refrigerator in the kitchen, she walked back to her room in her slippers. From the expression on her face, it seemed that she was still upset about Jiang Chen's behavior. After entering the laboratory, she didn't say anything. She stretched out her two little arms and pushed Jiang Chen out of the door and then closed the door with a bang. Looking at the closed wooden door, Jiang Chen, who knew he was in the wrong, touched his nose awkwardly, not knowing what to say to apologize. Jiang Chen admitted that, although it was unintentional, his behavior just now was indeed a bit over the line for a young girl, but he really didn't expect her reaction to be so big. After a lot of entanglement, Jiang Chen finally sighed, gave up explaining, and walked towards his bedroom. At most, he could bring her 2 more boxes of pudding next time, mango flavor. Lying on his bed, Jiang Chen muttered a few words, then closed his eyes and started the journey. When he opened his eyes again, he was already in the present world. Jiang Chen raised his hand and pressed the rice-sized crystal on the bracelet, and the green light immediately dimmed. After throwing the bracelet into the storage space, he picked up the phone on the bedside table and checked the time. It was getting late. It was already early in the morning. Rubbing his tired eye sockets, Jiang Chen pulled the quilt over and closed his eyes, sleeping until dawn. Early in the morning, Jiang Chen checked out of the business hotel and then went to the airport not far away empty-handed, and then took a flight from Melbourne to Hong Kong. The ticket was bought 3 days ago. Because there were still matters of project bidding and loans to be dealt with, Jiang Chen needed to go to Hong Kong before returning to Singapore. And now it was April, and the contract with Daimler Group was about to expire. Although Yao spent 2 hours to complete the intelligent driving system on the day the contract was signed, in order to avoid shocking the world, Jiang Chen had not sent the USB flash drive and chip to Carmen Rothschild. This time when he returned to Hong Kong, Jiang Chen planned to hand over the program to Carmen. Net profit of $1 billion in 2 hours. It must be said that Yao is actually the biggest gold mine in this wasteland. After several hours of flight, Jiang Chen woke up from a nap and got off the plane under the gentle reminder of the flight attendant. At the gate of the airport, Jiang Chen saw the beautiful figure from a distance. It was Zhao Xiao. Before coming to Hong Kong, Jiang Chen sent a text message to Zhao Xiao in advance. He asked her to pick him up at the airport, if it was convenient. With a smile on his lips, Jiang Chen walked straight to Zhao Xiao, who came to pick him up at the airport. "You are finally back." Although her face was cold, Jiang Chen read a trace of resentment from her expression. Jiang Chen, who had noticed her feelings a long time ago, naturally would not fail to understand the metaphor in her words, but as before, he just laughed and skipped the question. "I haven't seen you for 2 months. You've lost weight." Zhao Xiao rolled her eyes at Jiang Chen, and without saying anything, she turned around and opened the door of the Maybach. This car was originally Jiang Chen's car, but after going abroad, Jiang Chen gave the car keys to Aisha, who stayed in Hong Kong to protect Zhao Xiao. After confirming Zhao Xiao's safety, Aisha left the car keys to Zhao Xiao according to Jiang Chen's instructions. As for now, this car has become Zhao Xiao's means of transportation to and from get off work. Sitting in the passenger seat, Jiang Chen looked at Zhao Xiao sitting in the driver's seat, lifted her long hair, and then started the car skillfully. "Do you like it?" Jiang Chen asked abruptly. Zhao Xiao's face suddenly turned red, and she stepped on the accelerator. The car suddenly rushed forward, rubbing against the guardrail and crashing past, almost scaring Jiang Chen to death. What are you talking about?" Zhao Xiao hurriedly turned the steering wheel back to the normal lane, with a blush climbing from her fair neck to her ears. She spoke incoherently, so that her voice was out of tune. "Ahem. I was asking if you like this car." Her chest gradually calmed down. After calming down, Zhao Xiao turned her head and glared at Jiang Chen fiercely, and her face returned to that cold expression. "I always feel she is angry. I'm asking you seriously. If you like it, I'll give it to you." Jiang Chen whispered. "No, I can afford it." Zhao Xiao gritted her teeth. She didn't know why she was so angry, but there was one thing she was sure of, that is, this guy was far from being as clean as she imagined. No, it's better to say that he is a beast. Regarding this, she only learned about it when she lived with Aisha. because of her good figure. Although her face was still young, she always thought Aisha was 18 years old. It was not until they talked about age that she knew Aisha's real age. However, this was not the key point. When asked if Jiang Chen had done anything to her, Aisha looked at her innocently and said in a very ordinary way, "I did it." Did it? At first, Xia Xiaoyu didn't react, and then a thunderbolt flashed through her mind. She only remembered that she was completely stunned at that time. She always thought that Jiang Chen was a man who kept himself clean and was not good at socializing with girls. This misunderstanding was a bit big, but she didn't expect that he was a beast who would attack her bodyguard and a little girl under 18. But Aisha's reaction was very normal. She told Xia Xiaoyu seriously that it was normal to get married at the age of 13 in her country, especially in this war era, and this age might even be younger. In addition, she also told Xia Xiaoyu that she could feel that she loved Jiang Chen as well, and she would not mind her existence, and was willing to share his warmth with her. Perhaps this is normal to Aisha. After all, polygamy is the norm in her hometown. Even though Syria is at the forefront of the Middle Eastern countries in terms of secularization, this has not changed. But for Xia Xiaoyu, who lives in modern society, this is an unacceptable bad habit. When she heard that Jiang Chen and Aisha had done that, her first reaction was shock. Then she felt sad, even desperate, and then turned to hatred. Sure enough, men become bad when they have money. This feeling is like a broken heart, although it may be just a secret love. But no matter what, this is the first time she has experienced such a heartbroken mood. However, facing Aisha's pure and flawless eyes, she could not raise any hatred. What's more, she once risked her life to save her. However, the most helpless thing for her is, even so, she still loves him. If she didn't love him, she wouldn't be sad at all, and she wouldn't be jealous, because other women got there first. She just needed to leave quietly. If she didn't love him, she wouldn't be here to pick him up now. The car drove to a modern apartment building, and Xia Xiaoyu drove the car into the garage neatly. "Where is this?" "My home," Xia Xiaoyu said simply, then pushed open the door and got out of the car. Jiang Chen couldn't help asking as he got out of the car with Xia Xiaoyu and walked towards the elevator of the apartment building. "Aren't you going to take me to the hotel? It's too troublesome. Just stay at my house." Xia Xiaoyu lightly lifted her long hair, not realizing her explosive words at all, and reached out to press the elevator button. Jiang Chen was stunned. "Huh? Why, do you dislike me?" Xia Xiaoyu raised the corner of her mouth slightly and looked at Jiang Chen. Stunned by this moment of charm, Jiang Chen didn't react for a while. No. Satisfied with the expression on Jiang Chen's face, Xia Xiaoyu raised a smile and said lightly, "That's it. This time you come back mainly to discuss business, and we can live together to exchange ideas. There is no other meaning." Jiang Chen always felt that the last sentence was a bit of a cover-up. As he was talking, the elevator arrived with a ding-dong sound. As the door opened, she stepped into the elevator. Looking at Xia Xiaoyu, whose eyes seemed to say, "What are you waiting for?" Jiang Chen stepped into the elevator in confusion. She has figured it out. She must take the initiative. So what if he has a woman? He hasn't married yet. Before getting married, no one can say who is the third party to whom. In this case, just snatch him away. Aisha's existence made her feel in danger. Now there is no time to be reserved about childish questions like who confesses to whom first. Xia Xiaoyu secretly made up her mind to pull Jiang Chen back to the right path and save this good man who has gone astray and is going further and further on the wrong path. Don't get me wrong, this is just to repay him for saving her from danger several times. Xia Xiaoyu comforted herself in her heart. Thousands of kilometers away in the waters of the Panu Islands, 2 transport ships and 2 engineering ships slowly sailed towards Xinai Island. In order to protect the local environment as much as possible, Jiang Chen did not choose to blast the reef to build a port, but chose to set up an offshore platform in the waters 2 kilometers away from the island, and then laid a sheet pile dock around the offshore platform that extended to the deep water area. As for this offshore platform, it is connected by a 3-kilometer long arc dam. The dam can accommodate 2 cars in parallel, and there is an ocean current generator set at the far island end of the dam. Although the waters near the island are shallow, the waves are endless. In this way, not only the transportation problem to the offshore platform is solved, but also the power supply of Sun Island is solved. Although the cost of this offshore platform is as high as $1 billion, it is even more than twice the cost of the military base itself. But Jiang Chen thinks that this investment is completely worthwhile, so he doesn't care about this expense. The construction of the offshore platform and dam was undertaken by another offshore engineering construction company called ownerless. Thomas's mammoth company was only responsible for the construction of the sheet pile dock connected to the offshore platform. After all, professional projects such as offshore platforms are beyond the capabilities of military contractors. Thomas took the initiative to propose to find other companies to cooperate in the construction of the project. Although the CEOs of both companies were confused, what was the point of the starring trading company spending so much money to build this offshore platform near an island? This thing is often built in the open sea, and building it next to an island is more or less like taking off your pants to fart. And they also asked to build it as large as possible. The larger the area, the better, which is even more intriguing. Chapter 340 Blackmail. Of course, since the construction was not in a sensitive area, the engineering party did not ask too much about the purpose of this offshore platform. After receiving the deposit, they quickly sent a ship to work. This offshore platform covers an area of about 2 football fields and is triangular in shape. If it were in the open sea, the difficulty of this project would be almost unimaginable. If ordinary steel were used, the tidal force of the seawater alone would be able to dismember this big guy. If titanium alloy was used, the cost of this project would be an astronomical figure. But if it is constructed in shallow waters with a depth of more than 10 meters, the difficulty of the project will be much smaller. The reinforced concrete base can be directly driven into the seabed rock shell, which is equivalent to building a triangular artificial floating island. The 4 ships anchored near Crescent Island and released a small boat to start exploring the project site. At the same time, the ship of the starring trading company also lowered the speedboat and approached the construction ships. After boarding the ship of the mammoth company, Ivan, Bakary and Thomas said hello. After confirming the project matters, the 3 of them sat on the deck and boasted. A Ukrainian, an Asian, and an Australian. The 3 of them sitting together felt like the United Nations. Ivan was the eldest and talked the most among the 3. After all, he had joined the army during the Soviet era. This old guy had been talking about everything from the upheavals in Eastern Europe to the Ukrainian Civil War. Just as the 3 were chatting animatedly, 3 medium-sized boats drove over from a distance, accompanied by several shrill whistles. "What is that?" Ivan frowned, took out the binoculars in his pocket and looked over, but he couldn't recognize which country the red and blue flag belonged to. Bakary couldn't recognize it either. He just squinted and glanced at it. Thomas, on the other hand, was knowledgeable and recognized it at a glance. "It's the flag of the Philippines. It should be their fishing boat." Thomas frowned, felt something was wrong, and walked towards the bow. The 3 fishing boats stopped next to the ship. Soon, a Southeast Asian with sallow skin and unbuttoned shirt came out of the boat and shouted at Thomas. Although Thomas recognized the Philippine flag, he could not understand Philippine language, so he had to ask the translator on the boat to argue with him. "What is this guy talking about?" Ivan frowned and walked to Thomas' side. The Filipino saw that another foreigner came out of the boat and immediately glared at Ivan fiercely. However, Ivan, who was born in Russia, would not be afraid of him. He had seen many bullet holes, so why was he afraid of human eyes? He glared back immediately. This Filipino was also a soft-hearted person. Seeing that Ivan was not easy to mess with, he subconsciously wanted to shrink. But seeing the other 2 fishing boats following, he immediately plucked up his courage, stiffened his neck and glared back, and shouted at the ship with a hoarse voice. He said, "This is their fishing area. Our construction boat scared away their fish, and he's asking for compensation from us. These damn bastards are shameless, and every time they get involved, the construction period is delayed." Thomas cursed. "Fishing boats from the Philippines? But this is Singapore's waters." Ivan frowned. Crescent Island is about 1,200 kilometers away from Mindanao Island, the southernmost island of the Philippines, and there is no dispute over the territorial sovereignty of the 2 countries. Legally, it is, but these bastards don't follow the law at all. Even if they once came here to pee, even your backyard is considered a fishing ground for them to fish for generations, and they are completely spoiled by their mentally retarded president. Thomas cursed. After all, he is a military contractor. Even though he has been retired for a long time, Thomas' temper still has a smell of gunpowder. However, his years of business experience have also smoothed his edges. He knows that it is useless to be angry. If these natives are pissed, the project will not continue. After taking a few deep breaths, his emotions gradually stabilized. He spoke to the translator and prepared to negotiate with the fisherman. However, Ivan, who was standing aside, had a different reaction. Hearing that these monkeys were purely here to blackmail and cause trouble, he raised his eyebrows and made a neat gesture to Bakary. Bakary understood, grinned on his black face, turned around and jumped back on the yacht, heading towards the ship of the Starring Trading Company. Now we can only ask the Singapore government for instructions. This is their waters. They should send a Coast Guard ship over. However, even if these monkeys asking for bananas are caught and sent back to their country, they will basically be released immediately by their government. Thomas said angrily. Single government? Why ask them for instructions? Ivan squinted his eyes and looked at the Philippine monkey. Thomas was stunned and looked at Ivan in confusion. Ivan took out his mobile phone and dialed a number instead of calling Zhang Yaping. Jiang Chen. The interior decoration is very fashionable, and the warm-toned wallpaper has a cozy feeling. All kinds of furniture and electrical appliances are available, combining comfort and beauty. It can be seen that the owner of the house is also a person who knows how to enjoy life. Standing in the entrance and changing into slippers, Jiang Chen looked around the layout of the house and asked Zhao Xiao casually, "Speaking of which, are you still renting a house?" "Yes. Why not buy a house? The company just distributed dividends last month, so the money for buying a house will not be out, right?" Jiang Chen asked in confusion. Futureman Technology held a shareholders meeting in March this year, although there are only 2 shareholders, and a total of $4 billion was taken out for dividends. Zhao Xiao holds 1% of Futureman International's shares. Because she follows the tax process of Singapore, she has almost no personal income tax. Now she has at least $40 million. I don't think you'll live here permanently. After taking off her canvas shoes, her slender feet wrapped in black silk stepped into cotton slippers. Jiang Chen, who was watching from the side, swallowed his saliva reflexively, so he didn't notice the deep meaning in Zhao Xiao's words. "Please sit down first. I'll get you a cup of hot water. By the way, where's your luggage?" Zhao Xiao looked at Jiang Chen's empty hands and couldn't help but asked in confusion. "Sweat. If I had known earlier, I would have taken out the suitcase in the airport toilet." Of course Jiang Chen brought the suitcase, but he couldn't tell Zhao Xiao that the suitcase was in the storage space, right? "Well, I'm used to buying it locally." Jiang Chen lied with a stiff face. Zhao Xiao frowned. "This is too wasteful. Forget it. I'll take you to Causeway Bay tonight. You have to buy at least 2 sets of clothes to change, and formal clothes for formal occasions, which are necessary for a business person." Okay, I'll listen to you," Jiang Chen said with shame. Damn, if I had known earlier, I would have insisted on staying in a hotel. Of course he brought clothes and toiletries, but it was inconvenient to take them out in front of Zhao Xiao. Now, he was bewitched and followed Zhao Xiao's words to move into her house. He had to buy a new set of everything. It was not because he felt sorry for the money, but because he was a person who was afraid of trouble. Jiang Chen breathed a sigh of relief as he watched Zhao Xiao walk towards the kitchen. He leaned back on the sofa in the living room. A faint fragrance lingered at the tip of his nose, much like Zhao Xiao's body fragrance. The fragrance was very light, with a hint of the dignity of lilac, but Jiang Chen felt a dry mouth. He could only blame his hormones. Soon, Zhao Xiao came out of the kitchen with water and handed a glass of warm water to Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen drank the water in one gulp, suppressing the strange feeling in his heart. "Are you so thirsty? How about I pour you another glass?" "Ahem, no thanks." Zhao Xiao nodded, then sat next to Jiang Chen and took the stack of documents on the coffee table. These are all the information of the project bidding party. But at this moment, the phone in Jiang Chen's pocket rang. Sorry, I have to answer the phone first. Jiang Chen stood up and walked to the window, taking out his mobile phone. Ivan? Did something happen at the SYNOPSIS Island military base? Looking at the name of the contact, Jiang Chen pressed the connect button. Hello, boss. There are Filipino fishermen making trouble in the waters near SYNOPSIS Island, saying that our offshore construction is hindering their fishing. Filipino fishermen? After listening to Ivan's explanation, Jiang Chen was stunned at first, then he raised his eyebrows and laughed in anger. Damn it, I've been annoyed by you banana-eating monkeys for a long time. Now you've even messed with me? I have to pay tribute to you for building a house in my back garden? You're rebelling. You're asking me for instructions on this shit. Pirates have broken into the country. Why don't you tell me what the border guard should do? Don't come to see me if you can't handle it well. After getting a positive answer from the boss, Ivan showed a grim smile on his face. That grim smile was very happy, and he was waiting for the boss to say this. Yes, sir. Chapter 341 Fishermen? They are pirates. After hanging up the phone, Ivan pulled out the pistol from his waist and loaded it with a click. This action scared Thomas, and he quickly grabbed the old Russian. You are crazy. If they filmed him pulling out the gun, they would definitely take the opportunity to blackmail you. Thomas, who often cooperates with Chinese companies in the South China Sea, knows that although these fishermen look stupid, they are very smart. If they filmed Ivan pulling out the gun, they would go back and poke a few holes in their boats to make trouble. If they spend money to settle the matter, the project will not be able to proceed. What's more, the behavior of these fishermen is supported by the Philippine government. Their government will even compensate them for their losses first, and then help them fight foreign lawsuits. Blackmail? Ivan curled his lips in disdain and aimed at the chest of the Philippine monkey. The Philippine monkey was startled at first, and then overjoyed, and hurriedly asked for the camera to be carried out. Seeing this, Thomas dejectedly put down his hand that was holding Ivan's shoulder and punched the railing of the bow. Damn. Well, it's over now. I'm going to ask your boss for an extension of the construction period. The project can't be carried out under their harassment. Ignoring Thomas's chatter, Ivan looked at the translator next to him. Tell them to leave the territorial waters of Singapore within 1 minute. Pirates are not welcome here. Pirates? They are fishermen. The translator was stunned and tried to correct Ivan's words. The boss said they are pirates, so they are pirates. Ivan held the pistol flat and said lightly. Seeing that Ivan had already started counting down, the translator gritted his teeth and had to translate to the fishermen on the fishing boats according to his words. Those Philippine monkeys were angry at the time. Fuck you. Threatening us with guns. Do you think we are scared? They are sure that these neighboring countries cherish their feathers and will never shoot. At most, they will just breathe. Pointing directly at people instead of ships. Who are you trying to scare? As for pirates, that's bullshit. There is not a single gun on the boat. Who would believe it if I told them? The Filipino monkey did not back down, but became even more presumptuous. Not only did he laugh loudly at Ivan, he also took off his pants and urinated on them. Half a minute later, 5 speedboats had already arrived in the distance, and all the soldiers standing on the speedboats were fully armed. Although they were not wearing mechanical exoskeletons, the rifles in their hands were all from the 22nd century Ripper. 60. The dry lips uttered the last Russian word. Time is up. Thomas thought he would put the money down awkwardly, or shoot at the water surface or the hull, but he didn't expect that the Russian guy would pull the trigger directly at the monkey's chest. That's right, it was the chest, not the legs or the hands. Bang. Blood splashed, and the blood instantly dyed the monkey's collar red. He staggered and fell to the bow, staring at his chest with his eyes wide open in disbelief. He wanted to scream, but only coughed up a string of blood foam. Run. Kill someone. Run, run. A series of screams rang out, and a monkey quickly rushed out of the cabin and dragged the accomplice who was shot into the cabin. The 3 fishing boats quickly reached the highest speed and fled desperately towards the Philippines. Thomas looked at Ivan blankly. You killed him? Killed a pirate. Ivan added that he pulled the trigger and fired a few more shots at the fishing boat that turned around. Although he didn't hit anyone, he made the monkeys scream. Although he couldn't understand, he could feel the panic in the sound. Once the arrow is shot, there is no turning back. If one is let go, they will all be witnesses in the court. Since people have been killed, they must be left here and sunk to the bottom of the sea. Maybe Jiang Chen didn't have this awareness, but Ivan did. On the front line in Donetsk, he had fought the Russians with real swords and guns. Would he be afraid of these monkeys from the Philippines? Thomas' mouth twitched, and finally he sighed, as if he had given up, and spread his hands. Well, nice fight. I've wanted to beat these bastards for a long time. There is no negotiation on territorial issues, only war. Ivan curled his lips and quoted a famous saying. That's right, but sometimes, in order to do business, we still have to learn to compromise and avoid greater losses. But my boss once told me that we are not businessmen. Ivan grinned. But the army? Thomas was stunned and sighed. That's really an interesting boss. I will restrain my crew. They didn't see anything today. Thank you. Ivan looked into his eyes and said seriously. For the hooligans who act like a spoiled child, you should use blood to let them know what is shame and what is awe. If you let them take one step, then they will take advantage of your kindness as weakness and take 10 steps towards you. After boarding the speedboat, Ivan personally directed the operation to encircle and suppress the pirates. Attention all ships. Attention all ships. There are 3 pirate ships fleeing to the northwest, carrying light weapons on board. Free fire. Repeat. Free fire. Received. The Coast Guard on the speedboat quickly approached the 3 fishing boats, holding up their rifles and scanning the fishing boats, leaving a string of dense bullet holes on the bulkhead. Those Filipino monkeys finally realized that they had hit a wall, and they only hated that the fishing boats did not have 2 wings, and they fled back to the border desperately. These speedboats did not ask whether they surrendered or not, and really treated them as pirates. In terms of speed, fishing boats can't outrun speedboats. Several speedboats fired at the engines of fishing boats, and soon the engines of fishing boats were turned off. Amid the sound of gunfire, the Filipino fishermen huddled in the cabin of the fishing boat in panic, cursing these foreigners in their native dialect for being unruly, and calling for support from the Philippine Coast Guard ship on the intercom. However, they were deep into the hinterland of Singapore's waters after all, and even if the Coast Guard ship broke in directly from the Philippine border, it would take some time. Suddenly, the gunfire stopped. Just when these monkeys thought their own people had arrived, there were a few bangs from the fishing boat. It was a Singaporean speedboat that approached and threw something on the boat. The captain adjusted his hat, carefully poked his head out, and looked at the deck outside the window. When he saw several assault rifles leaning on the cabin, he was stunned at first, and then his face changed suddenly. The 2 speedboats that threw weapons at the fishing boat fled quickly, while the other 3 stopped 30 meters away. A soldier in a bulletproof vest crouched at the bow, carrying an AT-4 rocket launcher on his shoulder, and %***. The captain rushed out of the cabin, as if he was desperate, knelt on the ground in panic, and cried and begged for mercy with snot and tears. Unfortunately, no one on the speedboat could understand what he said. They had no intention of showing mercy to the invaders. The soldier aimed at the anchored fishing boat and pulled the trigger. 3 rockets flew towards the 3 fishing boats from 3 directions, and the flames of the explosion reflected the red clouds on the horizon. In the distance, the Philippine Coast Guard ship was approaching. Several soldiers on the speedboat fired a few shots at their speedboat according to Ivan's instructions, symbolically making a few bullet holes. The soldier threw away the AT-4 disposable launch tube and took out the more advanced Poison Python rocket launcher from the cabin and placed it at his feet. Everyone reloaded their rifles and prepared for battle. Under Ivan's command, 5 speedboats headed for the Philippine Coast Guard ships. Chapter 342 How could I forget that thing? After putting the phone back into his trouser pocket, he walked back to the living room. Whose phone is this? A friend. Jiang Chen answered casually and sat down next to her. Seeing that Jiang Chen did not intend to explain more, Xiao just looked at him suspiciously and then stopped entangled in this issue and picked up the several documents on the table again. Clearing her throat, Xiao put on a serious expression and began to introduce these bidding documents to Jiang Chen. These paper documents in my hand are mainly materials from the bidder, mainly engineering details and related quotations. The design plan and concept map are all in my computer. It won't be too late to look at them later. But before looking at these things, can I ask a question first? Of course. Jiang Chen smiled. If it was a question that he could answer, he would naturally answer it. If it was not convenient for her to know for the time being, he would remain silent. Future technology is profitable. We have just established a foothold in the internet field. Why do we suddenly intervene in tourism real estate development projects? Xia Xiao pushed the glasses on her nose and asked in a deep voice. From an investor's perspective, the future of technology is bright, and the return on investment is definitely much higher than going to a small Pacific country to build infrastructure and revitalize the local tourism industry. Because I'm optimistic about the tourism resources of the Panu Islands and the development prospects of Singapore. And regarding the construction of some public facilities, the Singapore government's proposal to use land and sea development rights to pay for the project is also very satisfactory to me. For example, expanding airports, expanding roads, adding schools and hospitals and other welfare facilities. These projects are non-profit, and the Singapore government certainly can't let Jiang Chen work for nothing. However, the Singapore government can't come up with money for a while, and it is not difficult for the new regime to obtain loans from foreign banks, so it can only use land and sea development rights to compensate. Considering that the land price will definitely appreciate exponentially after the completion of these facilities, from a business perspective, this business is still very promising, but this kind of investment is difficult to recover the cost in the short term. Is it worth taking on billions of dollars of debt for such a high-risk project? Now Futureman Technology is fully expanding its global business and can be said to be in a stage of rapid development. The establishment of branches and talent reserves will require money. If the capital chain is broken, the consequences will be disastrous. Looking at Jiang Chen seriously, Xia Xiao raised a very sharp question. This is a problem. To be honest, it has always been Xia Xiao who has been managing this big company for him. Not to mention the company's operating conditions. He, the chairman, didn't even recognize all the company's senior executives. Although they drank together last time, after such a long time, he almost couldn't remember the names of those people. Of course, this can't be blamed on Jiang Chen's forgetfulness. After all, he is a man living in two worlds. Hearing this, Jiang Chen also touched his chin and pondered. How much money will Futureman Technology need to expand its business? Currently, we are planning to build branches in 5 major regions: Australia, North America, Europe, Russia, and Southeast Asia, including the construction of the branch headquarters, the hiring of employees, and training. The cost is estimated to be $800 million. $800 million? That's not a lot. Jiang Chen frowned. Seeing that the chairman of the company had no idea about money, Xia Xiao couldn't help but hold her forehead and began to popularize basic knowledge to Jiang Chen. We are in the internet industry. Our current income mainly depends on Futureman 1.0 and the mobile game new era. Although we have formed an absolute technological advantage temporarily, with the current rate of internet technology renewal, no one can guarantee that this technological advantage will continue. Imagine if a substitute for Futureman 1.0 appeared on the market, even if it could only perform one of hardware acceleration, power saving and intelligent operating system, even if it was slightly inferior to Futureman 1.0 in terms of function, but it was free. Would people still be willing to pay for our VIP project? Once that time comes, we will have to cut VIP fees and even change the original paid services to free use. If we lose the profit channel of Futureman 1.0 membership fees, it is no exaggeration to say that the operating conditions of Futureman Technology may even turn from profit to loss. Xia Xiao warned Jiang Chen earnestly. The reason why she said so much is that she hopes Jiang Chen will not spend money lavishly just because Futureman Technology is making a monthly profit of $300 to $400 million and even sign $1 billion order without blinking an eye. It must be said that from the perspective of the company's development, Xia Xiao still has a long-term vision. It's just that Jiang Chen sees farther than her. After all, His vision is not limited to a small future technology profit channel. I will solve this matter. You just need to take care of the operation. Jiang Chen answered vaguely, touching his chin. Take out the virtual reality helmet directly? But is it too early? Although VR virtual reality equipment is not unavailable now, it is mainly at the stage of physical perception and visual simulation. For example, a camera is used to capture the user's movements, and then the game is returned, and the picture is displayed in a three-dimensional form in front of the user through VR glasses. It is unlike the virtual reality technology of the 22nd century, which directly uses a neural access device to intercept the electrical signals of the spinal nerves and directly goes into the iron box. The brain and muscles of the whole body are asleep, but the consciousness appears in the virtual world. There is no need to rely on physical methods such as vibration or acupuncture to simulate real feelings, but to use simulated neural electrical signals to directly fake these feelings on the cerebral cortex. Even a display screen is not needed, because there is no need to go to the trouble of imaging on the retina. Virtual reality equipment in the 22nd century can start directly from the optic nerve. By then, playing games with eyes closed will no longer be a dream. However, the technological gap is so big that Jiang Chen himself is a little unsure whether to build a space elevator or a virtual helmet first. Okay, then I won't ask about this anymore. But as the chairman, you should still have an idea of the company's operating conditions. Haha, don't worry. Jiang Chen smiled confidently. Just kidding. There are so many good things in the end times, and you are still afraid of having no money to spend? But he really needs to think about what to use to make money next. Let Yao or Du Yankang develop a software? But he couldn't think of an idea for a while. Artificial intelligence has been developed, speed up and power saving have been developed, and mobile games have been developed. What else is missing from smartphones? Just when he was distracted, he suddenly caught a glimpse of a red packaging box under the coffee table. What is this? Jiang Chen curiously reached out and picked up the box. That was the size of a biscuit box, but Zhao Xiao jumped up like a cat whose tail was stepped on. Grabbing the box from Jiang Chen's hand, Zhao Xiao blushed and hid the box behind her back. However, the more she hid, the more curious Jiang Chen became. What could have made such an icy beauty embarrassed like this? Could it be? Thinking of this, Jiang Chen looked at Zhao Xiao with an ambiguous look in his eyes. He could only blame his dirty thoughts for associating everything with that kind of thing. It has to be said that women are sensitive animals. Looking at the obviously abnormal smile on Jiang Chen's face, Zhao Xiao was stunned at first, and then she reacted. What kind of filthy things are you thinking about? It's slimming tea. Slimming tea. Zhao Xiao threw the box into Jiang Chen's arms in despair. The blush on her face climbed to the base of her neck, and she was so angry that her teeth were clacking. What on earth is this bastard thinking about? It's really abominable. Slimming tea. But you're not fat. Jiang Chen looked at Zhao Xiao in confusion. Her waist and legs are very slender. Let alone losing weight, it's better to say that she has gained a little weight. Wait, slimming tea. Jiang Chen seemed to have grasped something in his mind. He closed his eyes and repeatedly chewed the word slimming. However, Zhao Xiao didn't notice the abnormality on Jiang Chen's face. Her cold and pretty face was completely replaced by a blush. She buried her head and didn't speak. He said, I'm not fat? In other words, he is very satisfied with my figure? It must be said that girls in love have such a rich imagination. Even Zhao Mimui, whose emotional quotient is close to negative, can't escape this. My buttocks have gotten bigger recently. She twirled her fingers around her temples and muttered in a voice that only she could hear. But as soon as she said this, she froze. Why did she say such an embarrassing thing? Her face was red, as if it was about to bleed. Zhao Xiao buried her head tightly, not daring to look at Jiang Chen in embarrassment. Although Jiang Chen didn't notice her embarrassment at all, and didn't hear her muttering at all. For urban white-collar workers, sitting on a stool for a long time at work, growing fat on the buttocks is basically an occupational disease. But Zhao Xiao was not so bad. Her situation was similar to those people who were so thin that they could be blown away by a gust of wind, but they kept shouting about losing weight. After all, it is a woman's nature to love beauty, especially for women who have a crush on someone. Suddenly, Jiang Chen clapped his hands and stood up, startling Zai Xiao, who was just daydreaming. Ha ha ha. I remembered it. Damn, how could I have forgotten that thing? Because it was too low end, he had never taken it seriously, and even disdained to take it seriously. Now that he thought about it, he was afraid that this thing could make more money than any software, and it was much more stable. Looking at Jiang Chen, who was laughing in astonishment, Zai Xiao was completely stunned. She couldn't understand what on earth was wrong with him. Chapter 343, The Magical Uses of Nutritional Mixture. Jiang Chen said, "I won't be back tonight," and ran out of the door excitedly, leaving Zai Xiao in shock. "Not coming back tonight? Then where are you staying? Also, didn't we agree to go shopping for clothes together tonight?" A string of question marks floated in her head. It was not until Jiang Chen slammed the door that Zai Xiao reacted and wanted to call him, but it was too late. Sighing, she reached out and covered her forehead. Feeling the coldness on her palm, she was slightly stunned. It was not until then that she realized that her face was already red. Regardless of whether Zai Mimui started to think wrongly, Jiang Chen had already run to the nearby 7 Days hotel to get a room, and then, regardless of the surprised look of the front desk receptionist, he hurriedly grabbed the key and rushed into the elevator. After locking the door, Jiang Chen fell on the bed and returned directly to the end of the world, then found Sun Jiao and explained his purpose to her. Nutrient mixture? Sun Jiao looked at the panting Jiang Chen in confusion and asked in confusion, "Don't you have enough food over there? What do you need that stuff for?" Anyone who has a little bit of money in the wasteland will not choose to drink something as unpalatable as nutrient mixture. Now there are fresh fruits and vegetables and frozen meat in the villa every meal. In the entire fishbone base, only slaves and lower class citizens will drink that stuff. It's used to help people lose weight. Oh no, it's to make money, Jiang Chen said excitedly. Lose weight? Sun Jiao had a few question marks floating on his head. There are very few fat people here in the end of the world. It's good to be full, let alone fat. The word weight loss is not new to Sun Jiao. Hey, it's troublesome to explain. There is an organic conversion furnace in the base, right? Take me to see it. Although she was very curious about what the unpalatable thing was good for, seeing Jiang Chen's eagerness, Sun Jiao had to take him to the warehouse of the fishbone base with doubts. According to Sun Jiao, the organic converter is not placed with food, but with building materials such as steel bars and cement bricks. Passing under the statue of the Mother of the Dead clause, the two came directly to the warehouse not far from the community center. Pushing open the door of the warehouse, the smell of water desiccant hits the face. A furnace the size of a gas tank stands in the corner of the warehouse, stacked together with a pile of green fruits. There are scattered wires plugged into the side of this organic converter, which feels like an enlarged version of a juicer. The reason why the poor people in the end times are so thin is basically because of these nutritional mixtures that are not nutritious at all. Pour all the meat of different species and the fruits of mutant plants directly into the container, turn on the power, and then use a molecular filter to filter out the proteins, sugars, fats, vitamins and other substances that can be absorbed by the human body, and make liquid food that can be fully absorbed by the human body. After sniffing, a strange smell filled his nose. Jiang Chen frowned and looked at the furnace and asked, "Is this the organic converter?" "Yes." Sun Jiao nodded, tilted her head and asked again, "Are you sure? If you take this thing to your place, will anyone really want it? This thing is definitely not good. It has a strange smell. Can the nutritional mixture produced by this thing really be drunk? Organic converters are all like this. The smell is basically the filter residue, which are all toxic substances that have been excluded. So this thing can't be put together with food, otherwise a room full of food will be stinky." Sun Jiao said helplessly. Jiang Chen nodded to show that he understood, and then looked at the fruit next to him. "What is this fruit?" "Mutated fruit. Two-headed cows love to eat. Because the oxalic acid content is too high, people can't eat it directly, but it is still a good raw material for nutritional mixture. If used with a small amount of alien meat, there should be no problem in producing a grade C nutritional mixture," Sun Jiao introduced. Jiang Chen had tried the sea-level nutritional mixture once, and the sour taste was really not good. As a product, it cannot be too unpalatable. If it tastes like Chinese medicine, I'm afraid that not many people will buy it. After thinking for a moment, Jiang Chen asked, if we use fresh meat or rice, can the nutritional mixture produced reach air level? Use fresh food to produce nutritional mixture? Are you crazy? Sun Jiao asked in surprise. Who would eat these things when there are fresh foods? Is this what a normal person would do? Ahem. Of course I'm not crazy, just tell me if it works. Sun Jiao held her forehead and sighed as if giving up. To be honest, although I haven't tried it, it shouldn't work. The production of B-level and above nutritional mixtures not only has strict requirements on materials, but also on production equipment. I heard that Liuding Town has equipment that can produce B-level and above nutritional mixtures, but I have never bought that stuff. Apart from the taste, I don't feel any difference between it and C and D level. It is said to be more nutritious. Who knows? Even S-level nutritional mixtures are not as delicious as real food. There are S-level nutritional mixtures? Jiang Chen was a little surprised. Of course. In fact, the so-called S-level nutritional mixtures are nutritional mixtures produced before the war. I heard that they are mainly used as military supplies. After all, in peacetime, no one should want to eat that stuff. Sun Jiao said doubtfully. Where can I find the production equipment of this S-level nutritional mixture? Jiang Chen asked the question he was most concerned about. I don't know. But the scientists in the shelter know about that kind of thing. Jiang Chen slapped his forehead. Sweat. How could I forget about the survivors in shelter number 27? There are so many experts. There must be a few who know their stuff, right? Forget about the S-level nutrient mixture. Wouldn't it be better to just research a custom version of the nutrient mixture? Thinking of this, Jiang Chen immediately walked towards the door of the warehouse. He wished he could fly to camp number 27 right now to explain the matter. Seeing Jiang Chen walking towards the door, Sun Jiao was stunned for a moment and couldn't help but say something to stop him. Hey, are you going now? It's almost dark, or go in the morning. At the end of her words, her cheeks were slightly hot. Jiang Chen stopped and saw the red clouds on Sun Jiao's pretty face. How could he not know the deep meaning of the beauty's words, and couldn't help but smile. He stepped forward and hugged Sun Jiao's willow waist. Jiang Chen smiled evilly and leaned close to her ear. Then I'd better go tomorrow. The next morning, with 2 dark circles under his eyes, Jiang Chen took a helicopter directly to Camp 27. After getting off the plane, he found Zulu, who was working in the command post. Since the abilities of all the survivors have been registered, after hearing the purpose of Jiang Chen's visit, Zulu quickly found several names from the file and called them to the office. When the survivors heard that they were summoned by Jiang Chen, they could be described as ecstatic. Want to ask why? That's a question. Being summoned for no reason must be because their abilities have a place to be used, such as setting up a new scientific research project team or something. Although life on the surface is not bad, it is not as comfortable as in the shelter. Who doesn't want to live a good life with their family? Even though Jiang Chen's request was a bit harsh, they still took it up. Chapter 344. Sorry. In order to lose weight, many young girls who come from wealthy families only eat 1 meal a day, or even only 1 apple a day. Although Jiang Chen had doubted it a long time ago, would they really not starve to death if they ate like this? Dieting is not only harmful to the body, but also difficult to stick to. This is also the origin of the joke. Fat people lose weight, and they get fatter and fatter. Imagine if there was a diet pill on the market. Oh no, it should be sold as a low-calorie food. You only need to drink 2 tubes of this every day to be full, and it will not cause any harm to the body. Drink it for half a year in a row, and you will look like a refugee in the slums. Of course, no one would want to be that thin, and normal people would stop taking the medicine after drinking it for a month. The taste of the directly wasteland version of the nutritional mixture is still a bit too strong. Since it is a commodity, it naturally cannot be difficult for customers to swallow, and considering food safety issues, the production materials and nutritional value of this nutritional mixture must be redesigned. For this improved version of the nutritional mixture, Jiang Chen made several requests to the 5 researchers. First, it must taste good. Second, it must be healthy. At least it won't make you sick. Third, the calories must be low enough. And fourth, the materials must be easy to get and suitable for mass production. This formula must be completed within a month, and the sooner it is completed, the better. Every day they complete it earlier, they can live in the shelter for an extra month. In response to Jiang Chen's request, the 5 researchers patted their chests and made a promise, saying that they would definitely complete it within the specified time according to his requirements. When the 5 people left the command post, they all had happy smiles on their faces, and they couldn't wait to rush back to the shelter to start the experiment. Once they get the results, remember to report to the base immediately. Before leaving, Jiang Chen reminded Zulu. Yes, boss. Zulu replied with a smile. That's it. By the way, has Han Junhua compromised? Hearing this, Zulu shook her head in shame. Not yet. Is that so? What a troublesome guy. Why can't he just be obedient? Pac has already flown N light years away. What's there to be obsessed with? Jiang Chen couldn't help but mutter a few words in his heart. Do you want to go see her? Zulu asked. Well, let's go by the way. Jiang Chen said casually. Ask her in person if she has changed her mind, to show her sincerity in persuading her to surrender. Then, depending on the situation, decide whether to train her before leaving or not. Jiang Chen felt that he was really too evil. Zulu smiled and nodded gently. Okay, please follow me. Following Zulu into the cold basement, the guard at the door saluted Jiang Chen, opened the door for the 2 of them, and then closed the door for the 2 of them. Han Junhua sat calmly on the bed and looked at Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen could feel that the moment she looked at him, a trace of panic flashed in her pupils. Although it disappeared quickly, it was deeply imprinted in his heart. Facing the calmness and composure on her face, for some reason, he felt a trace of guilt in his heart. Is it because his mind is still stuck in the world? You go out first. Jiang Chen said softly. Yes. Zulu nodded, then turned and left the basement. The iron door slammed shut, and the basement fell into silence again. To Jiang Chen's surprise, it was Han Junhua who broke the silence first. What perverted things are you going to do to me today? Her voice was very cold, as if it could freeze people, but it was not mixed with any emotion. Jiang Chen opened his mouth, but closed it again. He had already thought of a speech, but facing this face as calm as dead water, he suddenly forgot the words. Sighing, throwing the prepared speech behind his mind, Jiang Chen said softly, sorry. Han Junhua's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise and confusion, but it was only for a moment. Although I don't expect you to forgive me, I still want to apologize for what I did to you back then. Jiang Chen admitted that he was indeed thinking of something wrong because of the lust at that time, and he put his evil thoughts into action without any guilt. And afterwards, he didn't think there was anything wrong with it. She was his captive, and he was free to do whatever he wanted with her. It must be said that, if you stay in a society without order and bottom line for a long time, people will unconsciously become corrupt along with the environment. Jiang Chen has long realized this. The longer he stays in the end times, the more his way of thinking will be like the people in the end times. After returning to society, the hostility he has acquired will gradually dissipate. Perhaps Sun Jiao and Aisha have noticed this, but Jiang Chen has only recently noticed this abnormality. If it were him, he used to be, although he was a little shameless, he would never do such a thing as forcibly teaching someone. After a long silence, she said in a calm tone, how can you apologize to a captive? Maybe. Jiang Chen smiled bitterly, shook his head, and left the basement. Looking at Jiang Chen's back, Han Junhua didn't speak. However, a trace of confusion flashed in his black pupils. After returning to the hotel, Jiang Chen went to the front desk to check out, and then returned to Zhao Xiao's apartment. However, when he knocked on the door, he found no response from inside the house. He called Zhao Xiao, and then he suddenly realized what was going on. It was already past 10 in the morning, and Zhao Xiao had already gone to work at the company. During the call, Zhao Xiao did not ask where Jiang Chen went last night, but simply told him how to take a taxi to the Future International building, and then hung up the phone. The implication was obvious, hoping that Jiang Chen, the chairman who was often seen from head to tail, would take time to come to the company. Regarding the project bidding, Jiang Chen ran out when he was only halfway through discussing it yesterday, and this time he just happened to go to the company to finish the remaining part. Not wanting to spend time taking a taxi, Jiang Chen directly stopped a taxi and got in, told the taxi driver the destination, and then sat in the passenger seat to play with his mobile phone. However, at this moment, a phone call came in. Caller, Wang Xiang. Looking at this name, Jiang Chen was silent for a moment, but still answered the phone. Hello, it's me. Wang Xiang's voice was a little bitter. If this call is about your uncle, then don't say it. Jiang Chen said softly. I knew you would say that. Wang Xiang sighed and said. After a 2-second pause, Wang Xiang changed his tone to pleading. Can't you give him a break? He rarely asks friends for help, and he doesn't want to do so, but this is for his family, not for himself. Although he is a little bit of a playboy sometimes, there is nothing to say about his position. You can ask Wan Linhe when he reached out that night, did he ever think of giving him a break? Jiang Chen smiled. Wang Xiang fell silent. After a long time, he sighed. I know. I'm sorry for you. When he came out of the Public Security Bureau that day, he did not tell Jiang Chen that the Wan family had already set their sights on Jiang Chen's future man technology, even though he had already heard some rumors at that time. After all, compared with family and friends, there is no doubt which is more important. It doesn't matter, it's not your fault. Sighing, Jiang Chen hung up the phone. He didn't have many friends, and now he might have lost one more. Just as he was about to put away his phone, Jiang Chen heard another call coming in. This time it was an international call. Caller, Zhang Yaping. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 345, Unexpected Gains. As soon as the call was connected, Zhang Yaping lowered his voice and yelled at him. What on earth have you done? Jiang Chen was stunned at first and said in surprise, oh, you are still a Christian. Zhang Yaping was also stunned, and then he roared angrily again. Is it time to discuss this issue now? The people from Sun Island, Filipino fishermen, pirates? Are you crazy? After roaring incoherently, Zhang Yaping gasped and took a long time to calm down. At this time, Jiang Chen noticed that his phone kept ringing, but he didn't answer it. Calm down. Jiang Chen smiled. Zhang Yaping, who had calmed down, forced a bitter laugh, leaned back in his chair, and continued. I'm almost desperate. What happened? Jiang Chen asked in a relaxed tone. You will know if you buy the newspaper of Zhang Figo. 3 fishing boats that mistakenly entered the border of Singapore were attacked and maliciously sunk by the Singaporean military. All 11 Filipino fishermen were killed. Don't tell me you don't know about this. Damn, it was sunk directly? Jiang Chen was stunned. To be honest, he didn't think of sinking the 3 fishing boats at that time. He just casually gave an order to Ivan to solve the problem and seize those fishing boats as pirate ships. He didn't expect that old Russian to have such a bad temper. He didn't know what those monkeys did to make him angry. Jiang Chen would certainly not admit his mistake. He casually said, who would buy a newspaper printed by monkeys? It deserved to be sunk. Do you think you can just wander around the military base? You also hindered the construction of military facilities. You will be shot at in any country. It won't be long before the whole world knows. The BBC reporter is outside, clamoring to get ahead of his colleagues. Rubbing his sour eyebrows, Zhang Yaping said tiredly. After a moment of silence, Jiang Chen whispered, did Ivan really kill all the people? Killed them all? Where is the sunken ship? Jiang Chen asked. The Philippine diplomats are negotiating with me, hoping to salvage the sunken ship as soon as possible. Who will lead it? Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows and asked. They hope to lead the investigation of the truth of the incident. The Coast Guard ship had crossed the border, but was forced back by your people. They were your men. You really didn't know anything about them? Zhang Yaping asked suspiciously. Jiang Chen moved his phone away and took a look. Sure enough, there were 2 missed calls. Sweat. I was in the apocalypse yesterday. How could I receive a call? Ahem. I was not in the service area yesterday, so I may not have received a call. Zhang Yaping rubbed his temple and said tiredly, so what should we do now? In addition to salvaging the sunken ship, what other requirements did they make? Jiang Chen asked. They asked us to investigate the murderer as soon as possible and deal with him seriously. Otherwise they reserve all options that may further worsen the situation. Murderer. Hearing this word, Jiang Chen was instantly unhappy and did not pay attention to Zhang Yaping's last sentence and immediately cursed. Fuck, if they sink it, then they sink it. This isn't the border of Singapore. Do they have the right to cross the border? To drive away the fishermen who entered illegally, we can only use water guns at most. The most barbaric thing is to use the Coast Guard ship to hit them. It is unheard of to drive them away directly with guns and cannons. Zhang Yaping gave a bitter smile. Military restricted area, special treatment for special circumstances. Who knows if they are spies or something? Frowning, Jiang Chen thought for a moment, glanced at the driver next to him, and said in a low voice, "It is not convenient for me to talk now. Anyway, I insist that the sunken ships are all pirate ships. Calling a horse a zebra, do you understand? If you don't understand, go to Beidou. I know you have never been to China, but don't forget everything from your ancestors. Keep the salvage stable in advance. In a word, just drag it out and wait for me to come back to solve it. Okay. Okay." Zhang Yaping's answer was very weak. He had just taken office, and the domestic situation was not stable yet, and a diplomatic problem came up. Philippine President Aquino called him yesterday, and his attitude was very tough, even arrogant. The population of the Philippines is 100 million, while the population of the Panu Islands is only 20,000. This 500-fold population difference really makes him lack the courage to challenge the Philippines. The 120,000 active troops are 6 times more than the total population of Singapore. If a military conflict really occurs, Singapore will only be beaten, although Jiang Chen does not think so. That's it, bye. After saying that, Jiang Chen hung up the phone. After about half an hour's drive, the car drove to Kowloon. Turning a street, Jiang Chen saw the sign of Future Man International among the tall buildings. He threw down 2 bills and got off the car at the door. Then Jiang Chen took out his mobile phone and called Ivan. Ivan answered the phone, and Jiang Chen hurriedly asked, "Did you kill all the people?" "Killed them all. I'm willing to accept the punishment." Ivan said very straightforwardly. "You are not wrong. There is no need to accept any punishment for defending the dignity of the border. But this matter may be a bit troublesome. You should stabilize your side first and wait for me to come back to deal with everything." Jiang Chen said in a deep voice. "Yes." Ivan said. Xinhuan Trading Company, a defense contractor of Singapore, sank 3 fishing boats of the Philippines and expelled the Philippine Coast Guard ship that broke into the border by force. Unlike the shock and anger of the Philippine public opinion, the people in Singapore are as excited as if they were on drugs. Even those who originally held conservative views on Xinhuan Trading Company have turned to fans. To describe it in one sentence, it is really fucking relieved. It turns out that the people of the 2 countries have long been resentful. When President Edward ruled the Panu Islands, he only took Johnny Who to eat and drink and didn't care about the lives of fishermen. How much tax do fishermen pay? Add up to enough for him to have a meal? There are no Coast Guard ships in the Panu Islands, only a few fishing boats to support the scene. Edward allocated all the limited military funds to the army to suppress dissident voices in the country. It can be said that, although the Panu Islands have vast waters, their control over territorial waters is basically zero. Not to mention the fishermen from the Philippines. Even the fishermen from New Guinea often run into their waters to beg for money. However, the fishermen in New Guinea are still quite peaceful, unlike the monkeys in the Philippines, who not only catch your fish, but also like to bully local fishermen. The fishermen in the Panu Islands have long hated the Filipinos, but due to factors such as economic ability, the fishing boats of the Panu fishermen are often one level lower than those of the Filipino fishermen. If you fight to the death, you will only be sunk. If you really encounter a fight for fish, you can only hide from them, even in your own country. This is also the reason why there is a rich fish school in the Crescent Island area, but you can't see a single new country fishing boat. I have to say that this is a very frustrating thing. The actions of the starring trading company were like a slap in the face of those villains. For a time, the attitude of the people of New Zealand towards the starring trading company changed from external interference forces to the patron saint of the people. Originally, not many people responded to the recruitment of the starring trading company. After this incident, there was even a long queue at the entrance of the recruitment point. The originally sharp domestic conflicts were immediately turned to foreign countries. The issues of land acquisition compensation, whether the follow-up projects of the tourism development zone will continue, and the reorganization of government agencies were all forgotten by everyone, because at this moment all the people of New Zealand were facing the same enemy. That is the Philippines. It was really unexpected that such a result would occur. Jiang Chen did not expect so much at the time. Chapter 346 Bid Evaluation. The Asian office of Future Man International is located in Hong Kong, and the headquarters is set in the Panu Islands. Of course, the so-called headquarters is just an empty shell. In addition to the Asian office, offices in other continents are also under intensive preparation. As the chairman of Future Man International, Jiang Chen thoroughly implemented the line of being a hands-off shopkeeper, leaving all the troubles of the company's operation to Zha Xiaoyu. It must be said that Zha Xiaoyu has a very good foundation. After all, she is a top student who graduated from a famous major in Wanghei University. Her professional knowledge, skills and learning ability are far beyond ordinary people. Although the span from a store manager of a chain clothing store to a world-class internet company is a bit large, she still carried the burden with her delicate shoulders. While learning the management knowledge of the group company, she also put this knowledge into practice in operation. So far, even if there have been some twists and turns in the middle, Future Man Technology has not encountered any major problems in operation. Here I have to admire her ability. Jiang Chen asked himself that it is impossible for him to manage such a large company. After a long time, Jiang Chen went back to work again. When the elusive chairman appeared in the office, all the employees' first reaction was surprise, just like seeing the sun rise from the west. There were old faces and new faces among these employees. Not everyone chose to transfer to Hong Kong for work, but Jiang Chen treated all those who followed FutureMan technology well. Basically, they were promoted according to their abilities, and those who were not promoted were also given salary increases. After walking around the company, Jiang Chen unexpectedly found that he could still call out many people's names, like Ning Huajian, the head of the FutureMan 1.0 project department, and Sumenki, the little girl who was a little reckless at the company dinner. After greeting the acquaintances, Jiang Chen did not disturb them from working and went straight to Zha Xiaoyu's office. She was wearing a capable professional suit with long black hair tied up behind her head, and the hair on her temples was shining with a light halo in the sunlight outside the window. When Jiang Chen came in, Zha Xiaoyu was reviewing documents. She sat very straight, her eyes were very serious, and she exuded a quiet and dignified beauty from head to toe when she was working. After noticing Jiang Chen, Zha Xiaoyu put down the ballpoint pen in her hand and raised her head. "You're here? Sit down wherever you want." "Yes." Sitting on the sofa opposite Zha Xiaoyu's desk, Jiang Chen glanced at the thick pile of documents on her desk, and a somewhat ashamed expression appeared on his face. Many tasks should have been done by him as the chairman, but now they are all on her alone. "You've worked hard. It's okay." Reaching out to tuck her hair behind her ears, Zha Xiaoyu pushed the chair away and stood up, picked up the laptop beside her, and walked to sit next to Jiang Chen. "These are all engineering concept drawings, and the table next to them is the cost assessment, which I have sorted out. Although I understand your mode of being a hands-off boss, the bidding evaluation still requires the participation of you as the chairman. Take a look at this one first." While explaining, Zha Xiaoyu skillfully clicked the mouse and took Jiang Chen through all the documents. In order to win this $10 billion project, major internationally renowned construction companies have also made great efforts, and each engineering concept drawing is exquisite. Not only did they use 3D modeling technology to show every detail of the project, but they also made a panoramic 3D bird's eye view of the 4 key construction islands after completion. After spending an afternoon, Jiang Chen finally chose a Dutch construction company called BMA Group. It is said that this company has participated in the Maldives Tourism Facility Development Project and is experienced in island construction, especially the 3D engineering concept map that can be called a work of art. When Jiang Chen saw it for the first time, he was attracted by its unique design. The perfect combination of technology and primitiveness. BMA Group fully reflects this in its design concept, while preserving the unique natural features of the Panu Islands. High-tech means are used drastically to provide tourists with the best travel experience, especially the transparent bubble hotel, which is like a balloon tied to a pole. Under the traction of the oxygen supply pipeline, guests can let the bubbles move vertically in any area between the sea level and the seabed 100 meters deep according to their preferences, or they can choose to fix the room or let the room float with the ocean current. Dancing with colorful tropical fish, falling asleep to the sound of ocean currents, and immersing your body and mind in the beauty of nature with the help of modern technology. Jiang Chen was fascinated by the design the first time he saw it. Although the offer of $8.7 billion is not low, Jiang Chen does not mind spending this little money if BMA Group can really build his backyard, the Panu Islands, into the beautiful concept map. Although Sun Jiao suggested that he could think about it for a few more days, Jiang Chen still made a decision directly. It is afraid that an outsider will not be able to see any clues, no matter how long he looks at it, so it is better to just leave it to intuition. Anyway, the companies that can be selected must be good, there is no doubt about that. Another reason is that he must rush back to Singapore as soon as possible, and he does not have so much time to think about it for a few days. When the two finished the bid evaluation, it was already 6 o'clock in the evening. At this time, except for the employees working overtime, there were no people in the company building. After leaving the company building directly, Sun Jiao quickened her pace, and Jiang Chen followed her, and the two walked towards the company's garage together. After opening the car door, Sun Jiao subconsciously looked around before getting in. Jiang Chen looked at her strangely, and also sat in the passenger seat. While fastening his seatbelt, Jiang Chen casually asked, "Are you doing anything tonight?" Sun Jiao frowned slightly, and looked over in confusion. "No." "Then you walked so fast, I thought you were busy." Hearing this, Sun Jiao was stunned, and ran away from sight. Ahem, it's not good for the company employees to see us getting too close. After all, we are both single. If there is an office scandal, it will definitely affect the work efficiency. In short, it's not good. Sun Jiao hurriedly put the car in gear and tried to start the car. It's nothing to just take a car. A colleague can give her a ride home or something. Jiang Chen silently complained in his heart. Although he couldn't see her face, Jiang Chen could clearly notice that her neck was a little red under the street lights outside the window. "You forgot to step on the clutch." Seeing Sun Jiao's flustered look, Jiang Chen reminded her in a low voice. I know." Turning her head and glaring at Jiang Chen, Sun Jiao stepped hard on the accelerator. This journey was thrilling. I don't know what Sun Jiao was thinking about. She was distracted all the way and brushed past the car in front several times. Jiang Chen kept staring at the steering wheel in her hands with fear, ready to grab the steering wheel at any time to deal with emergencies. However, what Jiang Chen didn't know was that if he hadn't been staring at her like that, Sun Jiao might not have been so nervous. Chapter 347 Not Hateful. After a lot of trouble, the two finally returned to the apartment safely. When they got out of the car, they both breathed a sigh of relief. When they reached the door, Sun Jiao calmly took out the key from her bag, but it fell to the ground before she could warm it up in her hand. "Why don't I stay outside?" Jiang Chen suggested in a low voice, looking at Sun Jiao's nervous look. "Oh, it's just a pure place to stay, not a bad thing. Why are you so nervous?" "It made me nervous too." No, it's too troublesome." No, this might be more convenient," Jiang Chen said in his heart. The key was finally inserted, and Sun Jiao seemed to be fighting against something, pushing the door open and stepping into the door stiffly with one foot. It was fine during the day. Looking at Sun Jiao's back, Jiang Chen complained in his heart. After entering the door, Jiang Chen was pulled by Sun Jiao to the unused bedroom. The layout of the room was somewhat feminine. It should be the room where Aisha lived when she was protecting Xia Xiao and Jiang Jiang. The quilts folded at the head of the bed smelled of the sun, and it was obvious that they had just been exposed to the sun. Xia Xiao threw a spare key to Jiang Chen with a stiff expression, and then hurriedly left the room, without the ease she had when she invited Jiang Chen to stay at her house yesterday. Shaking his head, Jiang Chen sat down on the bed, took out his phone, and called his parents and Aisha respectively. The two old people lived very comfortably in Coral Island. Not only did they live in a villa, but in addition to occasionally going back to visit the two old people, Jiang Chen also hired 2 servants to take care of the old people's daily life. Jiang used to like fishing very much, but later he gave up this hobby because the small river near his home was too dark to fish, and Poang Lake was too far from home. Now he lives by the sea, the environment is incredible, and the sea is just a few steps away from the villa, so he picked up this hobby again. Now he goes out with his fishing rod all day long, and goes out to sea on a yacht with Kaki hired by Jiang Chen, like an old fisherman who goes out early and comes back late. On the phone, Jiang kept bragging to his son about how big the fish he caught a few days ago was. Although it tasted salty, it tasted surprisingly good when dipped in ginger and garlic juice. As for Jiang Chen's mother Li Zumei, she occasionally went out to sea with Jiang, but most of the time she stayed at home, fiddling with the flowers and plants in the backyard. Occasionally, Aisha would come to visit her and ask her for the secrets of Chinese cuisine. Li Zumei liked this beautiful foreign daughter-in-law very much. Not only was she polite, but she was also virtuous. Where could she find such good conditions? Especially when Aisha seriously asked her what dishes Jiang Chen liked to eat, she was even more happy and couldn't stop smiling. At night, she kept pulling the old man to say that her son was blessed. Although she hadn't married yet, the two old people had already treated her as a family member. The first call lasted for an hour, and in the end, Dad hung up because he felt bad about the long distance call fee. The second call didn't last long, and Aisha didn't say much. But from her refined words, Jiang Chen could still feel the deep love and the longing for her thousands of miles away. Remember to take care of yourself. I'll be back in 2 days. Okay, Aisha said softly. That's it. I'll hang up first. Wait a minute. Aisha suddenly said. Anything else? Jiang Chen asked unexpectedly. Have you got Xia Xiao? Hearing the words on the other end of the phone, Jiang Chen almost choked on his saliva. Hey, what is it? Who did you learn this word from? Aisha tilted her head and continued to hold the phone. Can't I use this word? I saw it on a TV show. In the past, Aisha usually liked to watch American TV series when she watched TV, but in order to study the mysterious mother-in-law and daughter-in-law relationship, she specially downloaded 2 domestic TV series on her tablet. Although she didn't understand it very well, it was very helpful for her vocabulary. You should watch less of that TV series. Jiang Chen said embarrassedly. Okay, then I won't watch it. Aisha agreed very meekly. By the way, did you say something to Xia Xiao? I always feel that she is a little weird. Recalling the way he looked when he saw Xia Xiao just after getting off the plane, Jiang Chen thought about it and came to only one conclusion, that Aisha must have said something to Xia Xiao. During the 2 months that Jiang Chen went abroad, Aisha had been living with Xia Xiao, and Jiang Chen had no idea what the two women would say. However, considering that Aisha had saved Xia Xiao's life and almost lost her own life, the two of them should not have a quarrel. But considering Xia Xiao's feelings for him and the killing power of a kiss in person, Xia Xiao's hurdle may be difficult to pass. She said she won't admit defeat. Aisha rarely answered Jiang Chen's question directly. Will not admit defeat. Wait, what did you say to her? Jiang Chen said with a headache. Well, Aisha hesitated for a while, but finally spoke. I think she confessed our relationship. No wonder. Jiang Chen put his hand on his forehead. Just say that when Xia Xiao just got off the plane, the way she looked at him was a little abnormal, and she also invited him to live in her house, which was not the style of the beautiful Xia who kept people at a distance. I'm sorry. Like a kitten that had made a mistake, Aisha lowered her head and whispered quickly into the phone. I just thought, since she likes you so much, there's no need to endure it. I wouldn't mind sharing it with her, and I don't mean to oppose her at all. To be honest, including the kiss in the car that day, and confessing the truth to her, Aisha's original intention was to give her a push. But things didn't go as she wished, and Xia Xiao's first and second reactions were beyond Aisha's expectations. Xia Xiao seemed to understand her behavior as a demonstration. Jiang Chen hurriedly interrupted her. No, you don't have to apologize, and our relationship is not something shameful. But, she seems to have misunderstood something. Aisha's voice still carried some guilt. It's not a misunderstanding. Well, what should I say? Anyway, the situation in China is different from your hometown, and she will never agree. Then do you like her? Aisha asked seriously. Hearing her sudden question, Jiang Chen was stunned. After thinking seriously for half a minute, he slowly said, I don't hate it. Jiang Chen admitted that he was a very greedy person and a very selfish person. But he didn't intend to explain anything for this. I will help you, Aisha said seriously. No need to help. Let's just let things take their own course. To be honest, I haven't figured out what position I should put her in. Go to bed early. Good night. Well, good night. Seeing that Jiang Chen didn't intend to continue on this topic, Aisha ended the topic very considerately. After hanging up the phone, Jiang Chen lay down on the bed and threw the phone aside. With a long breath, Jiang Chen turned his face to the side and saw himself in the mirror in the corner. Grinning at himself, looking at the helpless smile in the mirror, Jiang Chen restrained the desire to smile bitterly. After all, it's better to go to bed early, because I still have to negotiate with the people of the Daimler Group tomorrow. Thinking of this, Jiang Chen didn't even take off his clothes, and just lay down on the bed and fell asleep. Chapter 348, A $1 Billion Deal. The next morning, Jiang Chen twisted his stiff neck and sat up from the bed. It was Xia Xiao who knocked on the door to wake him up. She had already adapted to the 9 to 5 schedule, so she got up early to prepare breakfast and put fried eggs, bread slices and milk on the table. While eating breakfast, Jiang Chen's heart pounded a few times as he watched her wearing an apron. He really didn't expect that she had such a virtuous side. I remember when I was in college, Jiang Chen had heard a friend who often boasted about how many girls he had dated say that single women's lives were generally very casual, and it was normal to clean the house once every 2 or 3 months. However, Jiang Chen could not see any casualness in Xia Xiao. The two of them communicated normally during the day, without the awkward feeling of yesterday. After breakfast, the two went to the company together. On the way, Xia Xiao behaved very normally, but Jiang Chen could still tell from the bags under her eyes with thick foundation that she did not sleep well last night. The meeting with the Daimler Group was held in the conference room of Future International. The representative sent by the other party came from the European headquarters and got off the plane last night. It is said that he is a big shot. Before the representative of the other party came, Jiang Chen had been guessing who would come, but he didn't expect to see an acquaintance. Haha. Hello, Mr. Jiang Chen, we meet again. Speaking fluent Chinese, Carmen Rothschild smiled and opened her arms and walked in front of Jiang Chen enthusiastically. Mr. Carmen, it's really unexpected that you actually came to China in person. Jiang Chen looked at the man in front of him with some surprise, but soon recovered and opened his arms. Although it was a bit awkward to hug a big man, out of courtesy, Jiang Chen still bit the bullet and hugged him. Of course, the Daimler Group attaches great importance to cooperation with your company, and so does the Rothschild family. Carmen said with a gleaming eye. He should not have discovered the GPS tracking probe. Carmen thought to herself. What is this guy up to? Jiang Chen wondered in his heart. The last time Carmen gave Jiang Chen a USB flash drive, there was a GPS tracking probe hidden inside it. Yao was only good at programming, and although she had some ability to modify electronic equipment, she had not received anti-reconnaissance training, so she naturally would not notice that thing. If it was Aisha, this GPS tracking probe would obviously not escape her eyes, which is the truth, that everyone has his own specialty. It's an honor to have you as an important partner of Future People International, Jiang Chen said with a smile. The two sat down at the conference table together. The black bodyguard who had been following Carmen for 5 steps stayed outside the door, and 2 technicians in suits and a secretary followed in. Xiaoyu took out the contract documents and placed them in front of Jiang Chen, then stood beside Jiang Chen. As soon as the meeting started, Carmen couldn't wait to say, "Let's stop with the greetings. Let's get straight to the point." "As you wish." Jiang Chen smiled slightly and signaled the staff to put the briefcase containing the USB flash drive and chip samples in front of Carmen. On this trip to China, Carmen also brought the top technicians in the group. The original contract stipulated that the product should be delivered in May. To be honest, when the technicians of the Daimler Group heard that Futureman technology had not only overcome the technical difficulties of the intelligent driving system, but also completed it a whole month ahead of schedule, they were so shocked that their eyes almost popped out. Everyone couldn't help but have the same thought in their minds. Isn't this Futureman technology fooling people? The Germans are famous for their rigor in technology, and they really can't tolerate even a grain of sand in their eyes when it comes to quality audits. Due to doubts about the ability of Futureman technology, the board of directors sent the 2 technical backbones responsible for developing the main control system chip to strictly review the loopholes of the artificial intelligence driving system. If this innovative technology goes wrong, the loss suffered by the Daimler Group will not only be as simple as a compensation, but also the reputation that it has worked hard to build for decades. On the other hand, if this causes people to panic about the safety of intelligent driving, it will inevitably cast a shadow on the intelligent prospects of automobile driving. It is precisely because of the almost strict pursuit of safety that the Daimler Group terminated the contract with the previous partner. 2 technicians came forward. One opened his briefcase with a serious look, and the other took out a laptop. After inserting the USB drive into the laptop, the 2 technicians started working on the computer. The meeting room was very quiet, and only the clicking sound of the keyboard and the hum of the fan could be heard. Carmen rested her arms on the table, half closed her eyes and rested, but Jiang Chen could notice that her eyes were all focused on the computer screen. Xiaoyu was still expressionless, but from the constant wandering of her eyes on the faces of the 2 technicians, it could be seen that she was not in a calm mood at the moment. Jiang Chen was the most relaxed in the entire meeting room. He leaned back in his chair calmly, waiting for the test results to come out. At this time, Jiang Chen noticed that the secretary standing behind Carmen had been observing him. Jiang Chen smiled at him friendly, but he looked away, as if he hadn't noticed. The 2 technicians looked more and more solemn, and began to exchange opinions in a low voice from time to time. Xiaoyu held her breath nervously, and her heart beat fast. This is a billion-dollar deal. Whether it's a handshake or a breakup depends on the next words of these 2 people. Finally, the 2 technicians stood up. From their actions, it seemed that the review was over. Result. Carmen asked the 2 briefly, even more anxious than Jiang Chen. The technician who looked more mature nodded, then looked at Jiang Chen, and said in English, "Mr. Jiang, you have indeed reached a height in the field of artificial intelligence that is worthy of our admiration. Please allow me to apologize for the doubts I once raised about your company's integrity in the group." The technician bowed deeply to Jiang Chen. "Don't take it to heart. For a scientific researcher, it is a virtue to have the courage to question," Jiang Chen said in a gentle tone. "Thank you for your understanding." The German nodded seriously. "The software you designed is perfect. From a technician's point of view, it is like a work of art. Although it needs to be taken back to the company to further verify its stability, I can tell you with certainty that this software is completely fine. It is simply perfect for our ahem." Carmen coughed lightly. The technician realized his slip of the tongue and stopped talking. "This is not a laboratory, but a conference table. Since our group's chief technician has verified the superiority of the software you designed, it seems that my trip this time is really worthwhile." Carmen stood up and said with a smile. Xiaoyu secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Only then did she realize that her palms were soaked with sweat. At this time, she looked at Jiang Chen, her eyes resting on the corners of his mouth that were raised because of confidence. Her cheeks felt a little hot, and she subtly looked away. Seeing Carmen stand up, Jiang Chen also stood up with a smile and stretched out his hand. "I wish us a happy cooperation." Haha, happy cooperation. With a smile, Carmen also stretched out her right hand and shook hands with Jiang Chen. $1 billion US, although it is still not enough compared to the funding gap of nearly $8 billion US. It has alleviated the financial pressure of future technology to some extent. But at this moment, Jiang Chen's peripheral vision suddenly caught a glimpse of the ring on his hand. The pupils suddenly contracted. That is. Chapter 349 Huge Loan. That pattern is a golden apple? Question mark? How is it possible? Jiang Chen's first reaction was that he thought he had seen it wrong and wanted to confirm the pattern on the ring again, but Carmen had already let go of her hand. Due to the angle, he could not see the front of the ring. Once the review process is completed, $1 billion US will be transferred to your company's account. Of course, I believe there is no problem. To celebrate our successful cooperation, can I invite you to have lunch? Carmen said with a smile. It's an honor. Jiang Chen smiled politely, hiding the shock in his heart behind this smile. Golden apple? Why? Is there any secret between the Rothschild family and the golden apple? No. But the golden apple is clearly in the U-235 submarine. From the diary of the Third Reich officer, it can be seen that the golden apple should be protected by the Third Reich as the last trump card. As a Jewish family, how could they come into contact with this thing? Did Hitler snatch the golden apple from them? No, that doesn't make sense. Suddenly, a strange look flashed across Jiang Chen's face. He suddenly realized that it was boring to be entangled in such things. No matter what the empire had conspired, 70 years had passed. He had clearly known from the diary that the holder of the golden apple did not understand how to use the thing until the last moment. Although that country may have unilaterally received some black technology, they have also been annihilated in the long river of history. Carmen did not notice the abnormality on Jiang Chen's face and enthusiastically invited Jiang Chen to get in his car. The black bodyguard sat in the driver's seat consciously, and his secretary sat in the co-pilot seat. Although the bodyguard did not say a word throughout the whole process, Jiang Chen smelled a hint of danger from him. This person is very strong, at least at the same level as Nick. However, this person is different from Nick's taciturn and restrained. The whole person's murderous aura is in an unconcealed state, and the whole person is like a war machine. It seems that this Rothschild family bodyguard is not a simple person. Jiang Chen and Carmen sat in the back seat, chatting all the way. Carmen's Chinese was very good, even better than Robert's, and she was also very good at talking. Soon, the car arrived at the destination, Catalonia Restaurant. This restaurant is also well known in the upper class of Hong Kong. From the elegant decoration and the elegant temperament of the waiters, one can see its extraordinariness. Looking at the respectful expression of the waiter who received the two of them to Carmen, Jiang Chen suspected that this restaurant should also be one of the properties under the name of the Rothschild family. After walking into a private room and ordering the dishes, the waiter brought up the exquisite dishes. The two chatted while eating. Oh, by the way, I suddenly remembered the bet between us. I still owe you a Maybach X. Carmen said while elegantly dismembering the Mediterranean red shrimp on the plate. When signing the contract, Carmen made a bet with Jiang Chen. If Jiang Chen can deliver the goods before May, he will give Jiang Chen a Maybach X. Only 5 units are sold worldwide. Jiang Chen was slightly stunned. Sweat. He almost forgot about this. I wonder if Mr. Jiang is free in October? Carmen smiled. I can't say for sure. What's the matter? Jiang Chen asked. Dahem will participate in the Munich Auto Show in October as a sponsor. The 5 Maybach X's will be exhibited at the auto show, and one of them will belong to you. If Mr. Jiang has time, I have an invitation here. Even if I don't have time, I will squeeze out time to attend. Jiang Chen laughed. Carmen also smiled slightly. He was obviously very satisfied that Jiang Chen accepted the invitation. Lunch was coming to an end. Carmen put down her fork and wiped her mouth elegantly with a tablecloth. By the way, does Mr. Jiang mind talking about business during the meal? Of course not. Talking about business at the table is one of the traditions of China. Jiang Chen said. Then I'll get straight to the point. Although the Rothschild family's industry is huge, its foundation is still in the banking industry. I heard that Future Man International has just undertaken a large project worth $10 billion US. I wonder if you need a little help? Carmen said with a smile. Oh. I wonder what kind of help? Jiang Chen asked with interest. $8 billion loan. 5 years. Annual interest rate 4.15%. I wonder if Mr. Jiang is interested in this loan. 4.15% annual interest rate, compared with the 4.28% annual interest rate offered by other banks that Jiang Chen has contacted, can be said to be very favorable. Don't underestimate the difference of 0.13%. For a large loan of nearly 10 billion, even a fluctuation of 0.1% in interest rate means a fluctuation of tens of millions of US dollars. $8 billion US dollars? Jiang Chen fell into deep thought. If Mr. Jiang has any objection to the amount, we can discuss it and make adjustments. Seeing that Jiang Chen did not give a reply, Carmen added $8 billion US dollars is indeed not enough, but few banks are willing to lend Future Man Technology a loan of more than 10 billion US dollars. Even if a few banks agreed, they also proposed additional conditions such as showing the specific purpose of the loan and listing on Nasdaq. It was really a case of a pillow being sent when you are sleepy. Jiang Chen thought about it for a moment and came up with an idea. $8 billion US dollars may not be enough. I wonder if Mr. Carmen is interested in doing a bigger business. Looking at Carmen, Jiang Chen smiled. Of course I'm interested. I wonder what Mr. Jiang's proposal is? A loan of 30 billion US dollars with 99% of Future Technology shares as collateral for 3 years. Jiang Chen calmly dropped a bombshell. Carmen's pupils contracted and she held her breath, but soon she regained her gentle and elegant expression. Jiang Chen was very satisfied to see the change in his expression. He knew that Carmen was already tempted. After a long silence, Carmen slowly spoke. No problem. We are very interested in artificial intelligence technology and are optimistic about your company's prospects in this field. But this 30 billion US dollars is not a small amount. I'm very curious, how can you pay it back in 3 years? At present, the market share of Future Man 1.0 is close to saturation. With the current rate of technological elimination, it may not be so easy for your company to further expand its profitability. Jiang Chen was very surprised. He really didn't expect Carmen to agree so straightforwardly. As he said, this 30 billion US dollars is not a small amount. Although the Rothschild family's family business is large, it is not blown by the wind. That's my problem. But I have a hunch that I may be able to pay off this loan in less than 3 years. Jiang Chen smiled and did not directly answer Carmen's question. There are still more than 50 years before the emergence of primary artificial intelligence. Even if the speed of scientific research in this world is faster than that in the end of the world due to various factors such as the diversified political structure, it is unlikely to cross this technological gap within 10 years. Because the advent of primary artificial intelligence is not only a technological advancement in the IT field, but also a comprehensive result of technological advancements in sociology, psychology, biology, medicine and other fields. In the case that Jiang Chen does not disclose the artificial intelligence database, it is impossible for Future Man 1.0 to be surpassed in the field of artificial intelligence. So Carmen's worries are not valid in a short period of time. However, relying solely on the profitability of Future Man Technology, it is definitely impossible to repay the loan within 3 years. But will Jiang Chen lack ways to make money? He has no doubt about his ability to repay the loan. Seeing that Jiang Chen did not intend to disclose it, Carmen did not ask any more questions. Then how about an interest rate of 4.5%? This is the most favorable condition I can offer. Although the interest rate of large loans is generally favorable, it is only when the other party can provide corresponding assets as collateral. With all due respect, your company cannot provide assets to guarantee the 30 billion US dollars for the time being. Carmen said cautiously. Lending this money to Jiang Chen is undoubtedly a risk. No problem, deal. Jiang Chen answered without hesitation. Future Man International needs money, and it needs a lot of money. With the base of the Panu Islands in hand, all development will be accelerated, and the technology of the wasteland will continue to go to the world through Future Man International. Although the huge sum of 30 billion US dollars is enough to buy 10 aircraft carriers, there is still a big gap if he wants to complete the blueprint of the technological empire in his mind. What confuses Jiang Chen is why Carmen, or the Rothschild family, is so confident in himself and lends him this loan without hesitation. This is 30 billion. Not Zimbabwean dollars, not Thai baht, but US dollars. The only thing that makes Jiang Chen a little strange is that from Carmen's calm and elegant smile, he can't see any hesitation at all. Jiang Chen's confidence comes from his confidence in the wasteland's technological resources. But what exactly does Carmen rely on? Even the Rothschild family, how many 30 billion does it have? Although he was very grateful for Carmen's help, he always felt that there was something unusual about this matter. Chapter 350 Bavaria Manor. However, the loan was obtained unexpectedly smoothly, even beyond Jiang Chen's imagination. Carmen's execution efficiency was very high, and a bilingual contract in Chinese and English was delivered to him the next day. After Jiang Chen signed, the 30 billion US dollars was transferred from the British Rothschild Bank to the account of Future Man International in the Swiss bank. After handling the loan, Carmen flew back to Europe. Before leaving, he handed the invitation letter to the Munich Motor Show to Jiang Chen and shook hands with Jiang Chen warmly. After sending this European tycoon on the plane, Jiang Chen and Zha Xiao left the airport. As soon as he got in the car, Zha Xiao couldn't wait to ask, "Did you really borrow 30 billion US dollars? Of course, am I kidding?" Jiang Chen smiled. Looking at Jiang Chen's eyes seriously, Zha Xiao sighed as if giving up. Okay, can you tell me your plan? How are you going to squander your money this time? Squander your money? You don't have to say that to me, Jiang Chen said helplessly. However, the look Zha Xiao gave him clearly expressed one meaning. If this isn't a waste of money, then what is? 4.5% interest rate. Do you know how much money you will have to pay back in 5 years? 37.385 billion. And that's in US dollars. Zha Xiao couldn't help but say, nearly 40 billion US dollars, enough to buy half of Beidou. Don't worry, I'm mortgaging my personal shares, not company assets. Even if I can't pay back the money by then, you won't be affected at all. Jiang Chen smiled and comforted her. Seemingly very dissatisfied with Jiang Chen's statement, Zha Xiao said coldly, "Who do you think I'm worried about?" Jiang Chen was slightly stunned, and the smile on his face became a little playful. He teased mischievously, "Oh, so you're worried about me?" Hearing this, Zha Xiao's aggressive momentum suddenly paused, and her cheeks gradually turned red. She looked away, started the car, and no longer looked at Jiang Chen. I just don't want to change my boss. I'm very satisfied with my current working environment. Although the chairman knows nothing and sometimes makes people feel troubled, it is still commendable that he has given full authority to the operation of the company to capable people. If I change to a boss who pretends to know everything and likes to give orders, that would be terrible. Her black bangs just blocked her side face, and Jiang Chen had to work hard to hear her explanation, which was as thin as a mosquito's hum and spoke at a fast speed. Seeing that Zha Xiao, who was always cold, actually cared about him so much, Jiang Chen couldn't help but feel warm in his heart, and couldn't help but comfort her. Don't worry, it's just more than 30 billion. What is the market value of future technology now? 10 billion, right? I will increase it tenfold in 2 years. Zha Xiao chose to remain silent in response to Jiang Chen's irrelevant bragging. Seeing Zha Xiao's obvious disbelief, Jiang Chen smiled and continued, "Since you don't believe it, why don't we make a bet?" "Bet? Okay. When you go bankrupt, come and be my secretary and let me use you for a few years." Zha Xiao teased. "No problem." Jiang Chen laughed. "But what if I win?" "Whatever you want." Zha Xiao raised her lips slightly after lightly touching her hair. It was called a bet, but in fact it was just a quarrel between friends, so she didn't take it seriously. Subconsciously, Zha Xiao still believed that Jiang Chen would find a way to solve this matter. As for why she believed in him so much, she couldn't explain it clearly. Jiang Chen smiled narrowly and said in a joking tone, "Whatever I want? Really?" Noticing Jiang Chen's gaze, Zha Xiao was stunned for a moment, and her fair cheeks flushed again. However, this time she didn't say anything, but just hid her expression behind her bangs. In the morning glow, a plane slowly appeared over Berlin. Under the guidance of the guide, the private plane slowly landed and then parked on the exclusive runway for private planes. A black Mercedes-Benz sedan stopped next to the aircraft door, and an old man dressed as a butler walked out of it and waited quietly at the door. The gangway car drove to the door, and soon the door opened, and a European got off the plane first. The old butler bowed respectfully to Carmen and greeted him in pure German. "Welcome home, Master Carmen. Long time no see, Mr. Thaddeus. Is my father in good health?" Carmen said with a smile. "Very good. The master has been fascinated by sailing recently," the old butler said respectfully, and at the same time gracefully opened the car door for him. "Sailing? Let me guess, he is in Florence now?" Florence is a coastal city on the Mediterranean Sea. Carmen vaguely remembered that there was a family business there. "No, he is in Germany, in the manor in Bavaria." The housekeeper shook his head. "Bavaria? Is it near the sea?" Carmen frowned slightly. "The master hopes you can take time to come back home." "Of course, I just want to see him too," Carmen said with a smile, and then sat in the back seat of the car. Johnson stepped forward and sat next to Carmen. The housekeeper just glanced at the black bodyguard, said nothing, sat in the driver's seat, and performed the duties of a driver. "Has the needle in the USB drive been removed?" Carmen whispered. "It has been removed. It's really unbelievable. What technology did the Chinese master?" Johnson couldn't help saying. "It may be an advanced radio shielding technology. Who knows? Fortunately, they didn't find anything," Carmen said. Carmen had no doubt about this. From the changes in a person's expression, he could roughly guess whether what he said was true or false. If he hadn't undergone professional lie detection training, it would definitely not escape his eyes. The car soon drove into a manor, and the manor servant took Johnson to the guest room, while the old housekeeper led Carmen to the backyard of the manor. Following the bluestone brick road across the lawn, Carmen saw her father next to the cabin by the man-made lake in the manor. Giacomo Rothschild, this once dominant financial giant, who once led the Rothschild family out of the shadow of World War II and rose in the late Cold War, was sitting on the shore of the lake sawing wood in a plain shirt. After his youngest son Carmen was born, he gave up the position of the head of the Rothschild family to his cousin, and lived a hermit life. Although he no longer asked about family affairs, no one in the family would question his influence. After all, this family on the verge of death was saved by him. That is why Carmen attaches so much importance to his father's summons. As soon as he got off the plane, he rushed from Berlin to this manor in Bavaria without stopping. However, when he saw his father sitting in the middle of a pile of rotten wood and tinkering with it with a saw, he was stunned. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.